There is a particular kind of silence that is not peaceful. It is the silence of a room, while a storm rages within the mind. Perhaps you know it well. You sit, seemingly calm, but your entire being is coiled into a knot of anticipation. Your thumb hovers over the screen of your phone, refreshing, checking, waiting for an email that holds a job offer, a text message that might mend a broken heart, a lab result that could change everything. In these moments, time itself becomes a form of torture. It does not flow, it drips, each second a heavy weight, stretching into an eternity of not knowing. This feeling, this desperate impatience, is more than just a personal flaw. It is the fever of our age. We are children of immediacy, living in a world built on the promise of an instant. Instant coffee, instant communication, instant fame. We have been conditioned to believe that we can, and should, have what we want, right now. And so, we live in a state of constant, low-grade warfare against the natural rhythm of life. We push, we force, we plan every detail down to the minute, and then we are consumed by anxiety when the vast, unpredictable ocean of reality refuses to fit into the tiny bottle of our expectations. This struggle is the hidden source of so much of our modern suffering, our stress, our burnout. But what if there is another way? What if we have fundamentally misunderstood the nature of time itself? What if it is not a linear track to be sprinted upon, but a vast, cyclical garden? And what if the moments of waiting, the ones we dread so much, are not empty voids, but fertile soil, a necessary space where the seeds of our future are quietly germinating, gathering strength in the dark? There is an ancient stream of wisdom, one that flows from the teachings of the Buddha, which offers not a religion to convert to, but a set of practical tools for the mind. It offers a way to understand and harmonize with what we might call the universe's timing. It teaches us how to cultivate patience, not as a passive act of endurance, but as an active state of profound trust, and how to find a resilient faith, even when the future is completely, utterly unknown. That urging voice inside, it speaks a language older than words. It is the restless tap of a finger on a tabletop, the anxious jiggle of a foot. It is the silent scream in a traffic jam, the constant refreshing of a web page. It whispers, and sometimes it shouts, in 1,000 different ways, but its message is always the same. Hurry up! Why is this taking so long? I cannot bear this waiting. We think of this voice as a part of ourselves, an essential feature of our personality. We say, I am an impatient person, as if it were a permanent trait, like the color of our eyes. But the wisdom of the Buddhist path invites us to look deeper, to investigate this relentless internal pressure, not as an identity, but as a profound and universal condition. To truly understand this urgency, we must first give it its proper name. In the ancient Pali language, the language of the earliest Buddhist texts, this condition is called tanha. This word, tanha, is often translated as craving or desire, but its true essence is captured more powerfully by the word thirst. Desire can be a neutral, even a beautiful thing. The desire for knowledge, the desire for justice, the desire to help others. But thirst, this is something different. Thirst is a feeling of painful lack. It is a desperate, consuming need that eclipses all else. When you are truly thirsty, you cannot think of anything else. The mind is fixated, a laser beam of need pointed at the object that it believes will bring relief. This is the nature of the urging voice. It is the voice of a mind in the grip of a profound thirst. The ancient teachings describe 3 distinct flavors of this thirst, and recognizing them in our own experience is like turning on a light in a dark room. The first, and most obvious, is the thirst for sense pleasures, kama tanha. This is the relentless wanting of things that please our eyes, our ears, our tongue, our body, our mind. It is the craving for a new car, a better meal, a more beautiful home, a more exciting vacation. It is the engine of consumer culture. It whispers that our happiness is just one purchase away. This thirst is insatiable, because as soon as one pleasure is grasped and experienced, its novelty fades, and the thirst immediately arises for something new, something more, something different. It is the endless cycle of wanting, getting, and wanting again, a treadmill that promises a beautiful destination, but is, in reality, bolted to the floor. The second form of thirst is more subtle. And it is here that we find the very heart of impatience. It is the thirst for existence, or for becoming bhavatana. This is not just a thirst for things. It is a thirst to be a different version of ourselves. It is the deep, aching desire to become the person who is successful, the person who is in a happy relationship, the person who is finally healed from past wounds, the person who is financially secure. We are impatient because we are desperately thirsty to arrive at this future identity. The present moment feels like an obstacle, a tedious waiting room that we must endure before our real life can begin. The urging voice is the voice of bhavatanha, shouting that who we are right now is not enough, that we must hurry up and become someone else, someone better. This is a profound source of anxiety, because we are constantly living in a future that does not exist, and constantly judging our present self against an idealized image. The third form is the thirst for non-existence, vibhavatana. This is the flip side of the coin. It is the powerful urge to get rid of what is unpleasant. It is the craving for an escape from pain, from boredom, from awkwardness, from fear, from the raw discomfort of uncertainty. When we are stuck in a line, the impatience we feel is often a form of vibhavatana. We are thirsty for the non-existence of the feeling of being trapped and bored. When we are waiting for difficult news, our anxiety is a manifestation of this thirst, the desperate wish to annihilate the current state of not knowing. We reach for our phones, for distractions, for any way to escape the present moment, because we are driven by this powerful aversion to discomfort. Impatience, then, is rarely a simple thing. It is a complex cocktail of all three thirsts, a desperate lunge for a future pleasure, a desperate push to become a future self, and a desperate flight from a present discomfort. Seen in this light, your impatience is not a character flaw, it is a symptom. It is the fever dream of a mind caught in the logic of tanha. It is the entirely predictable result of believing that your peace and happiness exist somewhere else, at some other time. This internal pressure is not a sign that you are failing, but a sign that you are human, and that you have been taught to drink salt water. There is an old story of a man, shipwrecked and adrift on a raft in the middle of a vast ocean. Delirious with thirst, he cups his hands and drinks deeply from the sea. For a fleeting moment, there is a sensation of relief, the coolness of the water soothing his parched throat. But it is a cruel trick. The salt in the water only dehydrates him further, and a short time later, his thirst returns with a vengeance, more agonizing and desperate than before. The more he drinks, the thirstier he becomes, a perfect and tragic cycle of suffering. Our modern world is this vast, glittering ocean of salt water. Every advertisement, every social media feed, every billboard is a siren call, promising to quench our thirst. They do not sell products. They sell the temporary relief from the pain of wanting. They tell us, drink this, buy this, achieve this, and your thirst will be gone. The culture of endless achievement and hustle glorifies this saltwater drinking. It tells us that to be still is to be lazy, that our value lies not in who we are, but in what we are about to accomplish. We compare our messy, complicated, behind-the-scenes lives with the perfectly curated highlight reels of others, and the thirst to become intensifies. We are encouraged, from every direction, to believe that our salvation lies just over the horizon. And so, we drink. We chase the promotion, we buy the gadget, we numb the discomfort, and we find ourselves, again and again, even thirstier than before. The freedom from this cycle does not begin by trying to destroy the thirst. You cannot fight it, command it, or shame it into submission. To do so is to simply create another form of thirst, the thirst for the thirst to go away. The path to peace begins with something much quieter, much gentler. It begins with recognition. It begins the moment you can hear that urging, pressing voice inside, and instead of immediately obeying it or identifying with it, you can simply label it with a quiet, knowing curiosity. Ah, this feeling. This is the thirst. This is tanha. This is the mind wanting things to be different than they are. This simple act of naming, of seeing the process clearly, is profoundly liberating. It creates a tiny gap, a sliver of space between the stimulus of the thirst and your habitual reaction to it. And in that space, a new possibility is born. A possibility of not drinking the salt water. A possibility of peace. But before we can fully inhabit that peace, we must first be willing to look directly, without turning away, at the subtle landscape of suffering the deep dissatisfaction that this unquenchable thirst creates in our lives. Having seen that our inner world is often driven by a relentless thirst, a deep and anxious craving for things to be different, we must now turn our gaze to the world it creates. We must look at the direct consequence of this tanya, a state the Buddha identified as the very foundation of our experience. This is the first noble truth, a statement that has been misunderstood for centuries, especially in the Western world. It is often translated bluntly and bleakly as, life is suffering. This translation, however, misses the profound subtlety of the original message. It paints a picture of a grim, nihilistic worldview, where joy is an illusion and despair is the only reality. But this is not at all what the Buddha meant. The word he used was dukkha, and to understand dukkha is to hold the master key that unlocks the entire path to inner peace. Dukkha does not just mean suffering in the grand, tragic sense of disease, war, or death. Of course, it includes these things, but its meaning is far broader, more intimate, and more pervasive. Think of a chariot wheel that is not perfectly centered on its axle. As it turns, there is a constant bump, a persistent friction, a subtle but ever-present wobble. It still rolls forward, but the journey is never quite smooth. This is dukkha. It is the low-grade, background hum of unsatisfactoriness that runs through our lives. It is the feeling that something is not quite right, the sense of discontent, the stress of things being slightly out of alignment. Impatience is a perfect, living embodiment of dukkha. The experience of waiting for something you desperately want is not perhaps a grand tragedy, but it is deeply uncomfortable. There is a friction, a tension between your desire and the reality of the moment. Your mind and body are filled with the stress of non-acceptance. The racing thoughts, the tightness in your shoulders, the churning in your stomach. This is the wobble of the wheel. This is dukkha. It arises from the fundamental conflict between our thirst, our tanha, and the way things actually are. We want the light to turn green, but it is red. We want the email to arrive, but the inbox is empty. We want our body to be healthy, but it feels pain. In each instance, the gap between our craving and reality creates a spark of friction, and that friction is dukkha. The radical insight of the Buddha was that the suffering is not inherent in the red light, the empty inbox, or the painful sensation. The suffering, the dukkha, is generated by our internal resistance to these realities. It is our mental declaration that this should not be happening. It is the war we wage against the present moment. The waiting itself is neutral. It is simply a fact. The suffering is the story we tell ourselves about the waiting, the judgment that it is bad, wrong, and unbearable. To illustrate this crucial point, the Buddha told a simple and powerful parable. It is the parable of the second arrow. Imagine, he said, a person walking through a forest. Suddenly, out of nowhere, an arrow strikes them in the leg. The physical pain is immediate, sharp, and undeniable. This is the first arrow. This arrow represents the unavoidable pains of human existence. It is sickness, loss, rejection, accidents, old age, and death. It is the flight being cancelled, the project failing, the loved one saying a harsh word. These first arrows are a natural part of life in this world. We cannot build a fortress high enough to protect ourselves from all of them. They will, from time to time, find us. But then, the Buddha continued, look at how this person reacts. Struck by the first arrow, they begin to wail and lament. They cry out, "Why me? What have I done to deserve this? This is horrible, this is a catastrophe. My life is ruined." They become consumed by anger, self-pity, and fear about the future. This reaction, the Buddha said, is like taking a second arrow and shooting it into your own leg in the very same spot as the first. The pain of the second arrow is not inflicted by the world, it is self-inflicted. The first arrow is the physical or emotional pain. The second arrow is the suffering. The first arrow is the unfortunate event. The second arrow is our story about the event. The traffic jam is the first arrow. The internal monologue of fuming, rage, and anxiety about being late is the second arrow. A critical comment from a colleague is the first arrow. The days or weeks of replaying that comment in our minds, feeling shame and anger, is the second arrow. Impatience is the quintessential second arrow. The waiting is the first arrow, an unavoidable fact of the situation. The mental anguish, the desperate urge for it to be over, the frustration, the stress, that is the second arrow we fire into ourselves, again and again, every moment that we wait. The liberating news, the great gospel of Buddhism, is this: the second arrow is optional. We do not have to shoot it. The practice of patience, of mindfulness, is the practice of learning how to feel the sting of the first arrow without reaching into our quiver for the second. To accept the reality of dukkha, to acknowledge the existence of these arrows, is not to be pessimistic, it is to be a realist. It is the first step of any good physician. A doctor who refuses to diagnose an illness out of a desire to be positive is not a compassionate doctor. They are a dangerous one. Acknowledging the diagnosis is what makes treatment possible. In the same way, acknowledging that life inherently contains dukkha is not giving up. It is not resignation. Resignation is a state of hopeless despair. Acceptance is a state of clear-eyed courage. It is looking at the red light and saying, "The light is red," instead of wasting precious energy screaming at it to be green. This acceptance does not mean we approve of all situations, or that we should not act to change injustice or alleviate pain. On the contrary, by accepting the reality of a situation, we stop wasting our energy fighting what is, and we liberate that very same energy to act wisely and effectively, to change what can be. We cannot steer a ship if we refuse to accept the reality of the wind and the currents. First, we see things exactly as they are. Then, we can act. So, the first noble truth is not a curse upon existence. It is a compassionate and empowering diagnosis. It gently takes our face in its hands and says, "Look, the source of your deepest agitation is not the world itself, but your struggle against it. Your suffering comes from the friction between your thirst and reality." By seeing this clearly, we move from being victims of our circumstances to being active participants in our own liberation. We realize that a vast portion of our mental and emotional distress is not a mandatory tax on being alive, but an optional, self-inflicted wound. This naturally leads to a profound question. If our struggle against reality is the problem, what is it about the nature of reality that we are struggling against? Why is it that the universe so rarely conforms to our desires? To answer this, we must go deeper, to the second great law of existence. We have seen that our inner world is often governed by a deep thirst, a craving that generates a constant, low-grade friction, a feeling of unsatisfactoriness called dukkha. We have learned that this suffering arises not from life's events themselves, but from our resistance to them, from the second arrow we fire into our own hearts. This naturally begs the question, what is it about reality that we are resisting? Why does the universe so rarely submit to our will, leading to this constant friction? The answer lies in the second great mark of existence, a principle as fundamental as gravity, yet one we spend most of our lives trying to deny. It is the law of anicca, or impermanence. At first glance, the world appears solid, stable, and predictable. We look at a mountain and see an eternal monument of stone. We look at the house we grew up in and see a fixed point in our personal history. We look in the mirror and see a self, a me, that seems consistent from day to day. But this perception of solidity is an illusion, a convenient fiction created by our senses, which are too slow to perceive the truth. The truth is that we are living inside a cosmic river, and everything, absolutely everything, is flowing with it. Anicca teaches that every conditioned thing in the universe, from the grandest galaxy to the most fleeting thought, is in a constant state of flux. Everything that has a beginning has an end. Everything that is put together will eventually fall apart. There are no exceptions. This is not just an abstract philosophy. It is a verifiable fact of existence, observable on every level. On the cosmic scale, stars are born in fiery nurseries of gas. They burn for billions of years, and they die in spectacular explosions, seeding the universe with the elements for new life. Our own sun is not a permanent fixture. It is a middle-aged star consuming its fuel, destined one day to expand and fade. On a planetary level, the solid Earth beneath our feet is a dynamic system. Mountains are not eternal. They are being pushed up by tectonic forces and simultaneously worn down by wind and rain. Rivers change their course, carving new paths through the land. Coastlines recede and advance. The world is a slow-motion dance of creation and dissolution. Nowhere is this flow more apparent than in our own bodies. We think of our body as a thing, an object we possess, but it is not a thing, it is a process. You are not a static entity, but a continuous event. Billions of your cells will die and be replaced in the time it takes to listen to this sentence. The air you breathed in a moment ago is now part of you, and the air you just breathed out is now part of the world. The food you ate becomes your flesh, your energy, and then is expended. Scientists estimate that over a period of about 7 years, virtually every atom in your body is replaced. The physical person you were a decade ago is, quite literally, gone. The body is a river of sensations, of warmth, of coolness, of pleasure, of pain, all arising and passing away in an endless stream. And what of the mind? Here, the river becomes a waterfall. Sit for just 1 minute and try to hold onto a single thought. It is nearly impossible. Thoughts, images, and memories appear as if from nowhere. They linger for a moment, and then they vanish, replaced by the next wave. Our moods are the same. Happiness is not a permanent state we can achieve. It is a welcome visitor that arrives, stays for a while, and then departs. Sadness, anger, and fear are the same. They are weather patterns that move through the sky of our awareness. They are not the sky itself. The mind is a torrent of ceaseless change. This is anicca. So how does this fundamental law connect to our impatience, to our dukkha? The connection is absolute. Our suffering arises from a single, tragic mistake. We try to build a permanent home on the banks of a constantly flowing river. We act as if things are solid and permanent, and then we are shocked and horrified when they change. Impatience is a direct rebellion against anicca. When we are impatient, we are standing in the river, screaming at it to stop flowing. We are fixated on a future destination, a point downstream where we believe we will find a solid rock of happiness. We want that future state to be solid, permanent, and to arrive now. At the same time, we want our current, unpleasant state to be annihilated, to disappear now and forever. We are trying to freeze the waterfall. Our deep-seated need for control is nothing more than the desire to stop this flow. We create rigid plans, detailed expectations, and firm beliefs about how life should be. We build a dam of ideas to hold back the river of reality. Then, when a loved one's feelings change, when a career path takes an unexpected turn, when our health falters, our dam cracks, and we are flooded with anxiety and fear. We suffer because we are trying to nail a photograph of the river to the river itself. It is a futile, exhausting, and heartbreaking task. There is a beautiful parable of a wise farmer who, unlike us, understands anicca. This farmer does not stand in his field in the middle of winter, surrounded by frozen earth and snow, and curse the sky. He does not demand that his seeds sprout in the frost. He knows that winter is not a punishment. It is a necessary part of a larger cycle. It is a time for rest, for consolidation, for the earth to gather its strength. He trusts the process. So, he works in harmony with the season. He mends his tools. He plans for the spring. He allows the land and himself to be fallow. His patience is not a grim, white-knuckled endurance. It is a deep, embodied wisdom. He trusts the coming of spring because he has seen the passing of many winters. He is at peace because he does not fight the river. He understands its currents. We can also think of the master surfer. A surfer does not paddle out into the ocean and command the waves to be a certain size or shape. She knows that the ocean is a vast, powerful, and untamable force. To try and control it would be absurd and dangerous. Instead of control, she cultivates sensitivity, balance, and wisdom. She learns to read the subtle language of the water. She feels the rhythm of the swells. She positions herself not in opposition to the wave's energy, but in harmony with it. Her great skill lies not in domination, but in a graceful dance with a power far greater than herself. She rides the wave of anicca. This is the invitation that the teaching of impermanence offers us. It invites us to stop fighting the river. It asks us to see that our impatience and anxiety are the price we pay for demanding permanence in a universe of flow. When we can begin to truly accept, in our bones, that everything changes, a radical shift occurs, a natural patience begins to emerge. a patience born not of suppression, but of wisdom. We begin to trust the flow. We understand that difficult moments, like winter, will eventually pass. We also learn not to cling so desperately to joyful moments, but to savor them fully while they are here, knowing they too are part of the flow. Patience becomes a form of profound relaxation, a letting go of the impossible burden of holding the universe still. We see now that the world around us is a river. Our bodies are a river. Our feelings are a river. Our thoughts are a river. But what about the one who seems to be watching all of this? What about the I that feels impatient, the me that is waiting for a better future? Is this observer a solid rock in the middle of the stream? Or is it too just another current in the great river of change? We have journeyed into the heart of reality and found a universe that is a great flowing river of impermanence, of anicca. We have seen that our body is a river, our feelings are a river, and our thoughts are a torrent. This understanding helps to loosen our desperate grip on life, allowing for a wiser patience to emerge. But as we stand on the bank of this river, watching it all flow by, a persistent character remains in the story. The watcher, the one who says, "I see the river, I feel my feelings, I am waiting." This, I feels like the very center of our universe. It feels solid, continuous, and in charge. It is the protagonist of our life's epic film, the chief executive officer in the headquarters of our mind. Our entire struggle with impatience is orchestrated by this I. It is I who wants something. It is I who is frustrated by the waiting. It is I whose future happiness depends on the outcome. The third and most profound of the great marks of existence asks us to turn our attention directly onto this central character and ask the most radical question of all: what if this I does not exist in the way we think it does? This is the teaching of anatta, often translated as no self or not self. And just like the teaching on dukkha, it is widely misunderstood. Anatta is not a declaration that you do not exist. It is not a nihilistic denial of life. You are here. An experience is happening. The teaching of anatta is simply an invitation to investigate the nature of that experience, to see if we can find the solid, separate, continuous self that we so firmly believe ourselves to be. It suggests that this I is not a solid entity, but a process, not a noun, but a verb. It is a beautiful, intricate, but ultimately empty illusion. The path of this investigation is like that of a brilliant detective looking for a master of disguise. We must search for this self in the only place it could possibly be found, within our own direct experience. Let us look at the components that make up what we call me. First, is the I our body? At first, this seems plausible, but as we have seen, the body is a raging river of anicca. It is constantly changing, aging, getting sick, and healing, all mostly outside of our direct command. If the body were truly me or mine, we should be able to command it. Do not grow old, do not feel pain, but we cannot. The body follows its own natural laws. So, the stable I cannot be found in this fleeting collection of flesh and bone. Well then, is the I to be found in our feelings? This is even less likely. Our feelings are as predictable as the weather. One moment there is the sunshine of joy, the next a storm of anger, followed by a fog of sadness. If you were your feelings, your identity would shift from moment to moment. You would be a different person at breakfast than you are at lunch. This is clearly not a stable basis for a self. Perhaps the I is our thoughts, our intellect. This is a favorite candidate for the ego. I think, therefore I am. But look closely at the nature of your own mind. Are you really the author of your thoughts? Or do they simply appear, uninvited, from the depths? A song gets stuck in your head. A worry about the future pops up. A random memory from childhood surfaces. The mind is a chaotic torrent of ideas, images, and chatter. If you are the one thinking these thoughts, who is the one that is aware of them? This simple question reveals a space between the awareness and the thought itself. Thoughts are events that happen in the mind. They are not the master of the mind. This investigation can go on through every aspect of our experience. But no matter where we look, we cannot find a solid, independent, unchanging self that is in charge. What we find instead is a collection of interrelated processes. We find a body, we find feelings, we find thoughts, we find consciousness. and all of these are constantly changing, arising and ceasing, completely dependent on causes and conditions, like eddies in a stream. The self, it turns out, is a phantom. There is a famous and beautiful story that illustrates this perfectly. It comes from an ancient text called The Questions of King Milinda. A wise king sought out a great Buddhist sage named Nagasena to debate the nature of reality. The sage arrived for the meeting, and the king, wanting to establish a common ground, asked, "By what name are you known, venerable sir?" Nagasena replied that he was known as Nagasena, but that this was just a name, a designation, a mere label, for in ultimate reality, no such person could be found. The king was astounded and a bit insulted. He said, "If there is no person, then who is it that wears these robes? Who eats, sleeps, and breathes? If I were to have you killed, would there be no murder?" Nagasena responded with a calm smile. He looked at the magnificent chariot that had brought the king. He asked, "Your Majesty, you speak of your chariot. What is this chariot? Is the wooden pole the chariot?" "No, venerable sir," said the king. "Are the wheels the chariot? Number? Is the axle, the frame, the reins, or the whip the chariot?" "No," the king replied to each question. Then, Nagasena continued, "Is the chariot all of these parts combined into one?" The king had to admit, "Number. Then, is the chariot something separate from all of these parts?" "No, venerable sir," Nagasena then declared. "Your Majesty, I cannot see this chariot. It is just a sound, a word. The word chariot is a convenient label we use when the pole, the wheels, the axle, and the frame are all brought together in a specific arrangement. But there is no intrinsic, independent chariot essence to be found." Then the sage brought the lesson home. In the same way, he said, the words I, me, or Nagasena are just a convenient label. It is a name given to the temporary collection of the body, feelings, thoughts, and consciousness. When these parts are assembled, we use the word person. But in ultimate reality, no permanent, separate self can be found. This insight is not just a dry piece of philosophy. It is the key to liberation from the heaviest burden we carry, the burden of the ego. The belief in a solid, separate self, a CEO in the mind, is the source of almost all our anxiety. It is this fictional CEO that takes everything personally. It's the CEO who feels offended when it doesn't get the respect it thinks it deserves. It's the CEO who is terrified of failure because it reflects badly on its performance review. It is this CEO who is paralyzed by impatience because it has a rigid 5-year plan for happiness, and the universe is not cooperating with the timeline. Anxiety is the constant state of this CEO, terrified of losing control of the corporation of my life. When we see, through our own investigation, that this CEO is a phantom, that there is no one sitting in the big chair, the entire structure of anxiety begins to collapse. The enormous pressure to manage, defend, and promote this self is released. Events still happen. The body still feels pain. The world still unfolds in unpredictable ways. But it is no longer happening to me. The personal sting is gone. An insult is no longer a personal attack on my core being. It is just sound waves vibrating in the air, creating a temporary, unpleasant feeling in this assembly of parts. The waiting for a result is no longer an agonizing trial for me and my future. It is just the impersonal unfolding of causes and conditions. This leads to a patience that is not forced, but that arises naturally from a place of profound peace. There is no longer a desperate self that needs protecting and gratifying at every moment. There is just the flow. There is the awareness of the chariot, moving and changing. The frantic need for control dissolves when we realize there was never anyone in control in the first place. This raises a final, crucial question. If there is no controlling self, no driver for the chariot, are we then just helpless, adrift in a world of pure chaos? If I am not making the decisions, what is? The answer is not chaos. The universe operates on a law that is as elegant as it is impersonal. It is a law that puts the power of our destiny, not in the hands of a fictional CEO, but in the quality of our every action. We have journeyed through some of the most profound and challenging landscapes of human existence. We have seen that our lives are often marked by a subtle dissatisfaction, a dukkha, born from our constant thirst for things to be different. We have learned that the universe we inhabit is a great flowing river of impermanence, of anicca, where nothing is solid or stable. And, in the most radical insight of all, we have discovered that the seemingly solid self, who is navigating this river, is itself an illusion, a convenient label for a collection of fleeting processes, a teaching known as anatta. The realization of no self can be disorienting. If there is no permanent I in the driver's seat, are we simply adrift in a sea of meaningless chaos? Are our actions pointless? Is there any law or order to our lives? The answer given by the Buddha is a resounding yes. But this law is not one of fate, nor is it the judgment of an external God. It is a natural law, as impersonal and reliable as gravity. It is the law of karma, or as it is more commonly known in the West, karma. Perhaps no Eastern concept has been more thoroughly misunderstood in the modern world than karma. It has been distorted into a kind of cosmic bookkeeping system, a supernatural scoreboard where good deeds earn you points toward a future reward, and bad deeds earn you punishments. We talk about instant karma when someone who cuts us off in traffic gets a flat tire, as if some invisible policeman were writing cosmic tickets. This view, however, is a complete caricature of the profound psychological law that the Buddha described. To understand karma is to understand the very engine of our experience and the true source of our power to shape our lives. The Buddha's teaching on karma hinges on a single, crucial word, cetana. He once said, "It is intention, monks, that I call karma. Having intended, one acts through body, speech, and mind. This is the key. Karma is not the action itself. Karma is not the result of the action. Karma is the volition, the intention, the moral quality of the thought that precedes and motivates the action. It is the seed. Two people can perform the exact same act, but the karmic result can be completely different based on the intention behind it. A person who gives money to charity out of a genuine, heartfelt desire to alleviate suffering is planting a very different seed than a person who gives the same amount of money simply to impress others or to receive a tax deduction. The outer action is identical. The inner action, the cetana, is worlds apart. Think of it not as a law of morality, but as a law of agriculture. If you plant a mango seed, you will, under the right conditions, get a mango tree. You will not get a lemon tree. It is a simple natural consequence. The universe is not rewarding you with a mango, it is simply responding to the nature of the seed you planted. In the same way, the mind is a garden. When you consciously plant seeds of generosity, kindness, compassion, and understanding through your intentions, words, and actions, the natural fruit that will grow from those seeds is happiness, peace, and connection. This is not a reward, it is the natural harvest. Conversely, when you plant seeds of greed, hatred, anger, and delusion, the natural fruit will be suffering, anxiety, isolation, and fear. This is not a punishment. It is the poison of the plant you chose to grow. Karma is the law that you reap what you sow, and it is here, in the gap between the sowing of the seed and the reaping of the fruit, that we find the heart of patience. Our modern minds, conditioned for instant gratification, expect the law of karma to operate like a vending machine. We put in a good deed, and we expect a package of happiness to drop out immediately. We meditate for a week and then become frustrated and impatient when we are not immediately flooded with bliss and wisdom. We are like a child who plants a seed in the ground and then digs it up every 10 minutes to see if it is growing yet. This very impatience, this digging up of the seed, is itself an unwholesome action, a seed of doubt and frustration that guarantees the plant will never grow strong. The truth is that karma operates on its own mysterious and complex timeline. Some seeds sprout overnight. You smile at a stranger, and they smile back, a near instantaneous karmic fruit. But other seeds lie dormant for a very long time. The ripening of any single karmic seed is dependent on a vast and intricate web of other causes and conditions. Just as the growth of a real seed depends on the quality of the soil, the amount of rainfall, the sunlight, and 1,000 other factors, none of which are entirely in the farmer's control. This understanding is the ultimate antidote to anxiety about the future. It teaches us to let go of our obsessive need to control the results. Why? Because we cannot control the results. We cannot control when or how the fruit will ripen. What we can control with absolute authority, is the quality of the seed we are planting in this very moment. This is the only place our power truly lies. The entire focus of a wise life shifts from anxiously scanning the future horizon for the harvest, to mindfully and diligently tending the garden of the present moment. With every thought we can ask, is this a seed of kindness or a seed of anger? With every word we can ask, is this a seed of healing or a seed of harm? With every action we can ask, is this a seed of generosity or a seed of greed? There is a powerful story told of the Chinese bamboo farmer that perfectly illustrates this principle. When the farmer plants the tiny seed of the giant moso bamboo, he must tend to it with great care. For the entire first year, he waters it, fertilizes it, and protects the soil. At the end of the year, nothing has broken through the ground. He continues his patient work for a second full year. Still, nothing. The third year passes, and the fourth, with no visible sign of life. His neighbors, who are planting crops that shoot up quickly, might laugh at him for wasting his time on an empty patch of earth. But the farmer has faith. He has a deep understanding of the nature of this particular seed. He knows that beneath the surface something incredible is happening. A vast, complex, and powerful root system is spreading throughout the soil, creating a foundation that will be strong enough to support the immense growth that is to come. Then, sometime in the fifth year, a tiny sprout finally pushes through the soil, and in a period of just 6 weeks, the bamboo explodes from the earth, growing up to 90 feet tall. Did the bamboo grow 90 feet in 6 weeks? Or did it grow 90 feet in 5 years? The answer is obvious. Its spectacular, seemingly sudden growth was made possible only by the long, patient, unseen, and often thankless work of the years that came before. Our wholesome actions are like this. Every moment of mindfulness, every word of kindness, every act of generosity, every time we choose not to act on an angry impulse, we are watering the soil. We are building the unseen root system in our consciousness. The results may not be apparent for a long time. Impatience is the voice that tells us to give up, that nothing is happening. Wisdom, born from an understanding of karma, is the quiet confidence that allows us to continue our work, trusting that when the conditions are right, the fruits will appear. This understanding transforms us from helpless victims of fate into empowered creators of our own reality. We are not bound by a pre-written destiny. We are shaped by the inertia of our past actions, yes, but at this very moment, we have the power to plant a new seed. Our future is not in the hands of the stars, but in the quality of our intention, right here, right now. We can relax our anxious grip on outcomes, knowing that if we diligently take care of the causes, the effects will, in their own time, take care of themselves. We have now laid the foundation. We understand the diagnosis of our condition, dukkha. We understand the nature of reality we inhabit, anicca and anatta. And we understand the law of action and result, karma. We have the complete map. Now, it is time to take the first step on the path. It is time to learn how to use the first, most essential tool for planting wholesome seeds, the practice of right mindfulness. We have now arrived at the very heart of the practice, the first practical step on the path toward reclaiming our peace. We have explored the philosophical landscape of our existence, understanding the nature of our inner thirst, the pervasive friction of dukkha, the universal law of impermanence, anicca, the illusion of a solid self, anatta, and the elegant law of cause and effect, karma. We have, in essence, been given the complete theoretical map for our journey, but a map, no matter how accurate, is useless if we do not learn how to read it and take the first step. That first step, the foundational tool that makes all other progress possible, is the cultivation of samasati, known in English as right mindfulness. To understand the profound power of mindfulness, we must first honestly observe the default state of our own mind. For most of us, for most of our lives, the mind is not a calm, orderly servant. It is more like a drunken monkey, one that has also been stung by a scorpion. It never stays still. It screeches and gibbers, leaping uncontrollably from one branch to another. One moment it is in the past, replaying an old conversation, dissecting a past mistake, nursing a long-held grievance. The next moment, it catapults into the future, rehearsing a conversation that has not happened yet, fantasizing about a future success, or, more often, spinning out elaborate and terrifying scenarios of what might go wrong. It is a whirlwind of daydreams, judgments, plans, worries, and random bits of chatter. This is not a personal failing. It is not a sign that your mind is broken. It is simply the nature of an untrained mind, a mind left to its own devices, conditioned by years of distraction and habit. Usually, we are so caught up in the drama of this monkey's antics that we are not even aware of its control over us. We believe we are the monkey, but the experience of waiting, of being forced into physical stillness, is what makes this inner chaos so painfully obvious. When you are standing in a long queue, or sitting in a silent waiting room, the external distractions are removed. There is nowhere to run. You are left alone with the drunken monkey, and its frantic energy, now trapped within the cage of a still body, becomes a source of immense agitation and suffering. The waiting itself is not the problem. The waiting simply pulls back the curtain on the pre-existing state of your mind. The profound peace promised by the Buddhist path comes from learning how to gently, patiently, and compassionately train this monkey, not by beating it into submission, but by giving it a calm, steady, and purposeful job to do. That job is mindfulness, the most widely used working definition of mindfulness in the modern world, one that beautifully captures the essence of the ancient teachings, describes it as paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Let us unpack the immense wisdom contained in each part of that phrase. First, paying attention. This signifies a conscious and active process. Our attention is the most valuable currency we possess. Where we place our attention determines our reality. For most of our day, we are on autopilot. We eat without tasting. We walk without feeling our feet on the ground. We listen to our loved ones while already formulating our reply. Our attention is scattered, fragmented, and hijacked by any passing stimulus. Mindfulness is the deliberate act of reclaiming this power. It is choosing to place the spotlight of your awareness somewhere, intentionally. This leads to the second part, on purpose. This points to the element of volition, of cetana, that we explored in the law of karma. Practicing mindfulness is a volitional act. It is a conscious choice to plant a wholesome seed of presence, clarity, and calm. The purpose is not to achieve a special state or to have a mystical experience, but simply to be fully present with what is already here. The purpose is to wake up from the dream of automaticity and inhabit your own life. Third, and at the very core of the practice, is in the present moment. This is the only place where life actually happens. The past is nothing more than a collection of memory traces in your brain, ghostly images and stories that are not happening now. The future is a collection of thoughts, a mental projection, a fantasy that is also not happening now. The only time you are ever truly alive is now. The only time you can feel, see, hear, or act is now. The great sickness of the human mind is its chronic refusal to live in the present moment. We live in a state of what could be called the tyranny of when. I will be happy when I get the promotion. I will be able to relax when the weekend comes. I will feel at peace when this period of waiting is finally over. By constantly postponing our lives, we miss the only life we ever have, which is a succession of present moments. Mindfulness is the practice of arriving home, in the now. Finally, and this is perhaps the most challenging and transformative part, is non-judgmentally. What does this mean? As we pay attention to the present moment, we will inevitably start to label our experience. This is pleasant. This is unpleasant. This is boring. I am good at this. I am terrible at this. Each of these labels is a judgment. It is the second arrow. It is the commentary we add on top of the raw data of experience. And it is this commentary that creates our suffering. To practice non-judgmentally is to cultivate the quality of a compassionate and impartial witness. It is to observe the stream of thoughts, feelings, and sensations as they flow by, without getting caught in them, and without condemning or clinging to them. You notice a feeling of anxiety arising, and you observe it with the curiosity of a scientist. Ah, this is anxiety. What does it feel like in the body? A tightness here, a coolness there. You are not judging it as bad or trying to push it away. You are simply allowing it to be what it is, a temporary pattern of energy and sensation. In this non-judgmental space, the second arrow is never fired. And in the absence of the second arrow, what remains is peace. So how do we begin to cultivate this state? The mind, like the body, needs a workout. In formal meditation practice, we train the muscle of mindfulness. The most common and effective technique is to use the breath as an anchor. The breath is the perfect object for mindfulness. It is always with you, from the moment you are born to the moment you die. It is always happening in the present moment. You cannot breathe in the past or in the future, and the rhythm of the breath is intimately connected to the state of your mind. A calm mind leads to a calm breath, and a calm breath helps to soothe the mind. It is your portable refuge, available to you in any situation. The practice itself is beautifully simple. You find a posture that is comfortable yet alert. Whether sitting in a chair or on a cushion, you can gently close your eyes, and you simply bring your attention to the physical sensations of breathing. You are not trying to control the breath or think about the breath. You are simply feeling it. Perhaps you feel the cool air entering your nostrils and the warm air leaving. Perhaps you feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest or your abdomen. You rest your full attention on these simple, humble sensations. Now, the inevitable will happen. Within a few seconds, the drunken monkey will awaken. Your mind will wander. A thought will arise. What am I going to have for dinner? Did I remember to send that email? The moment you notice that your mind has wandered is the golden moment of the practice. This is not a failure. It is the practice itself. The instruction is not to never wander, but to notice the wandering, and then, with immense kindness and without any self-recrimination, to gently guide your attention back to the anchor of the breath. Again and again and again. Every time you do this, every time you notice the wandering and gently return, you are strengthening the muscle of mindfulness. You are carving new neural pathways in your brain. You are training the monkey. This practice can be extended to the entire body. In a body scan meditation, you systematically move your awareness through the body, from the tips of your toes to the crown of your head, simply noticing whatever sensations are present: warmth, tingling, pressure, numbness, or perhaps nothing at all. This is a powerful way to ground yourself in reality and to directly experience the truth of anicca within your own frame. You notice that sensations are constantly shifting and changing, that there is no solid, permanent thing there, only a vibrant, flowing field of experience. Now we bring this full circle. The purpose of this formal training is not to become a professional cushion sitter. The purpose is to bring this cultivated awareness into every moment of your life, especially into those difficult moments of waiting. The great Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, spoke often of washing the dishes. He taught that you can wash the dishes in two ways. You can wash them in order to have clean dishes, rushing through the task so you can get to the better part of your day, like having a cup of tea. Or, you can wash the dishes in order to wash the dishes. You can be fully present with the task. You can feel the warmth of the water on your hands, see the shimmer of the soap bubbles, hear the sound of the plates clinking together. In this second way, washing the dishes is a profound meditation. Life itself becomes the meditation. The same principle applies directly to waiting. While waiting, just wait. Think of the next time you are caught in a traffic jam. Your habitual reaction might be to tense up, to curse the other drivers, to feel the wave of dukkha rise within you. This is the moment to practice. Instead of fighting the reality of the situation, you can turn the car into a monastery. Turn off the radio. Feel the sensation of your hands on the steering wheel. Notice the tension that has built up in your jaw and shoulders, and consciously release it on an out-breath. Bring your attention to the rhythm of your own breathing. Look at the brake lights of the car in front of you, not as an obstacle, but simply as a patch of red color. Listen to the hum of the engines as just sound, without a story attached. In this way, the traffic jam is transformed from a moment of suffering into a rich, alive, and even peaceful experience. When you are standing in a long line at the store, instead of pulling out your phone to escape the moment, use it as an opportunity. Feel the solid ground beneath your feet. Notice your posture. Are you slumped? Can you stand with a little more dignity? Observe the people around you, not with a critical eye, but with a gentle curiosity, as if you were watching a play. Notice the vast array of colors on the shelves, the intricate patterns of light and shadow, the cacophony of sounds. The waiting time, which was previously a dead time to be endured, becomes a vibrant field for exploration and discovery. You are reclaiming the lost moments of your life. When you are anxiously waiting for that important email or phone call, the practice is to turn your awareness inward. Notice the raw physical sensations of anxiety. Where do you feel it in your body? Is it a tightness in your chest, a fluttering in your stomach, a lump in your throat? Instead of being consumed by the anxious thoughts, simply rest your awareness on these physical sensations. Breathe into them. See if you can meet them with a quality of kindness and acceptance, as you would comfort a frightened child. The anxiety is no longer an enemy to be defeated. It becomes just another object of your mindful, compassionate attention. Through this practice, both formal and informal, we fundamentally change our relationship with time and with ourselves. We learn that peace is not contingent on our external circumstances. It is not found by successfully eliminating all the waiting and uncertainty from our lives, which is an impossible task. Peace is an inner quality of presence, a calm and spacious awareness that we can cultivate and access at any time, in any place. By learning to train the monkey mind, by anchoring ourselves in the reality of the present moment, we discover that every moment, even a moment of waiting, is a doorway into the profound stillness that lies at the very center of our being. This mindfulness makes us acutely aware of our inner world. We begin to see with great clarity the arising of all our mental states, including the challenging ones. Now that we can see the storm clouds of anxiety and fear gathering, the question becomes, how do we stand in the midst of that storm without being swept away? The practice of mindfulness, of anchoring our awareness in the present moment, acts like a clear, steady light. When we shine this light into the inner landscape of our minds, we begin to see what has always been there, but was previously hidden in the shadows. We become acutely aware of the constant stream of our thoughts, and, most powerfully, of the arising and passing of our emotions. Inevitably, this light will illuminate the dark clouds and gathering storms of our difficult feelings, the sudden flash of anger, the cold grip of fear, the suffocating fog of anxiety. Our first instinct, an instinct honed by a lifetime of habit and a culture that fears emotional discomfort, is to declare war. We treat anxiety as an enemy to be vanquished. This war is typically fought on two fronts. The first strategy is suppression. This is the inner warrior, the stoic who grits their teeth and tries to wrestle the feeling into submission. We tell ourselves, I shouldn't feel this way. Just be strong, push it down and get on with it. We try to build a wall to hold back the tide of emotion, but this is like trying to hold a large beach ball underwater. It takes an enormous amount of energy to keep it submerged, and the moment our concentration wavers, the ball erupts from the surface with even greater, more explosive force. Suppressed emotions do not disappear. They fester in the darkness, often manifesting as chronic stress, inexplicable irritability, or physical ailments. The second strategy is distraction, which is a form of flight. The moment we feel the first twinge of anxiety, we instinctively reach for an escape. We plunge into the endless scroll of our phones. We turn on the television. We lose ourselves in work. We pour a drink, or we seek out comfort food. This provides immediate, temporary relief. We have successfully fled the scene of the emotion. But the storm cloud is not gone. We have simply run indoors. It is still waiting for us outside, and often, by being ignored, it gathers more energy, more rain, more thunder, waiting for our eventual return. Both of these strategies, fighting and fleeing, are born from resistance. They are powerful ways of firing the second arrow. They are based on the faulty premise that the emotion itself is the problem. But the wisdom of the path shows us a third way, a radical and compassionate alternative that requires not strength in the form of resistance, but courage in the form of stillness. It is the way of mindful observation. It is the art of learning how to stand in the rain without dissolving. A helpful framework for this practice can be found in the simple acronym RAIN. The R stands for recognize. This is the first fruit of your mindfulness practice. It is the moment when you can pause and mentally note what is happening. Ah, this is anxiety. Oh, hello anger. I see you're here. This is the feeling of sadness. This simple act of recognition is profoundly powerful. It immediately separates you from the emotion. You are not anxiety. You are the one who is aware of the anxiety. You are not the storm cloud. You are the vast, open sky in which the storm cloud is appearing. This recognition creates a crucial space, a moment of clarity before you are swept away by the reactive habit of fighting or fleeing. The A stands for allow or accept. This is the most radical and healing step. It means you give the emotion permission to be there. You stop fighting it. You let go of the internal struggle. You drop the rope in the tug of war. Allowing does not mean you like the feeling. It does not mean you approve of it or want it to stay forever. It is simply a courageous acknowledgement of what is true in this present moment. Right now, anxiety is present. To fight that fact is to fight reality, which is a battle you will always lose. So you say to the feeling, inwardly, you can be here. I will make space for you. The moment you stop resisting, the second arrow of suffering, the suffering about your suffering, begins to dissolve. The energy you were using to hold the beach ball underwater is now free. The I stands for investigate. Once you have allowed the emotion to be present, you can bring a gentle, non-judgmental curiosity to it. This is not a cold, analytical investigation of why you are anxious. You are not trying to figure out the story. Instead, you investigate the raw, physical reality of the emotion. You ask yourself, what does this actually feel like in my body? You move your attention out of your head and into your direct, sensory experience. Where do I feel this anxiety? Is it a tightness in my chest? A hollowness in my stomach? A buzzing in my hands? Does it have a temperature? A texture? Does it have a size and a shape? Is it static, or is it vibrating, pulsing, changing? As you stay with these direct sensations, you make a remarkable discovery. The emotion is not a solid, monstrous, permanent thing. It is a constantly shifting, fluid pattern of energy. You are witnessing Anika firsthand. This grounds you in your body and demystifies the emotion, revealing it as an impersonal, energetic weather pattern rather than a personal failing. Finally, the N stands for nurture or non-identification. After you have sat with the raw energy of the feeling, you can offer yourself a gesture of active compassion. You can place a hand over your heart and silently offer yourself words of kindness, the way you would to a dear friend who is suffering. This is so difficult right now. May I be kind to myself. It's okay to feel this way. This step is a direct antidote to the harsh self-judgment that so often accompanies our difficult emotions. And as you nurture yourself, you reinforce the wisdom of non-identification. You see with ever greater clarity that this emotion, this storm, is an event passing through you. It is not you. You are the sky, and the sky is not harmed by the storm. The sky has room for storms, for sunshine, for clouds, for rainbows. Your awareness is vast enough to hold it all. There is a beautiful story from the life of the Buddha that illustrates this principle perfectly. In Buddhist mythology, the figure of Mara represents all the forces that obstruct our peace and freedom: fear, doubt, greed, anger, confusion. Mara is the personification of our inner demons. Even after the Buddha attained enlightenment, Mara would still come to visit, hoping to disturb his serenity. One day, the Buddha was sitting in meditation when his faithful attendant, Ananda, saw Mara approaching, appearing as a terrifying figure of darkness. Ananda's first instinct was to protect his teacher. He stood up and prepared to chase the demon away, to fight him off. But the Buddha stopped him. He simply looked toward the fearsome entity and said, with perfect calm, "I see you, Mara." He did not run. He did not fight. He simply acknowledged what was there. Then he would turn to the figure and say, "Welcome. There is a seat for you here. Would you care for some tea?" He would treat Mara not as an enemy, but as a guest. And Mara, in the face of such fearless, non-resistant, and compassionate awareness, would lose all his power. His terrifying form would shrink and vanish. He could not survive without being fed by fear and resistance. Our anxiety, our anger, our despair, these are our inner Maras. Our habit is to be like Ananda, to immediately try to fight them or chase them away. But this only gives them more power. The Buddha's path teaches us to meet our inner demons at the door and say, "I see you, anxiety. Welcome. I will make a space for you." When we can meet our own pain with this kind of mindful, accepting presence, it begins to lose its terrifying power over us. We learn that emotions are just energy. Like a wave on the ocean, they gather force. They rise to a peak. And, if left alone, they will naturally recede back into the sea. Our habit of struggling against the wave, or of frantically trying to ride it by feeding its story, is what keeps us trapped in its turmoil. Mindful observation is the act of opening up the entire shoreline, allowing the wave to express itself and retreat in its own time. We learn to trust this natural rhythm. This is not a one-time fix, but a skill that we cultivate with each passing storm. It is the practice of a lifetime, the brave and gentle art of facing our inner weather with wisdom and an open heart. We have learned to stand still in the midst of our inner storms, to meet our anxiety and fear not with resistance, but with the clear, steady light of mindful observation. This is a profound and transformative skill. It allows us to unhook ourselves from the painful drama of the second arrow. Yet, for many of us, this observation, while powerful, can sometimes feel cold, distant, or clinical. There can be a subtle sense that we are just neutrally cataloging our own suffering. This is because a crucial ingredient may be missing, an element of warmth that transforms mere observation into a profound act of healing. The missing ingredient is active, intentional kindness. Very often, when we feel impatient or anxious, another voice joins the storm, the sharp, insidious voice of the inner critic. It whispers, and sometimes it shouts, "You shouldn't be feeling this way. Why are you so weak? You're failing at this whole mindfulness thing. You need to get your act together." This voice of self-aggression is perhaps the most painful second arrow of all. It adds a layer of shame and judgment on top of the initial discomfort, creating a vicious cycle of suffering. The wisdom of the Buddhist path offers a direct and powerful antidote to this inner critic, a practice designed to intentionally change the emotional climate of our own minds. It teaches us not only how to weather the storm, but how to actively cultivate the sun. This is the practice of metta. The ancient Pali word metta is most often translated as loving kindness, but it can also be understood as boundless friendliness, unconditional goodwill, or benevolent affection. It is crucial to understand what metta is not. It is not the possessive, grasping, romantic love that is so often the subject of our songs and stories, nor is it the conditional love that says, "I will be kind to you if you meet my needs." Metta is a selfless, radiant warmth, a sincere and heartfelt wish for the genuine well-being of oneself and all beings, offered freely and without expectation of anything in return. Its far enemy, its direct opposite, is obvious: hatred, anger, and ill will. But its near enemy, a counterfeit emotion that can masquerade as metta, is selfish attachment. The near enemy feels warm, but it is ultimately self-serving and leads to suffering when its conditions are not met. Metta, in its purity, is like the sun. The sun does not decide who is worthy of its light and warmth. It shines on the saint and the sinner, the flower and the weed, the rich and the poor, all with equal and unconditional generosity. This is the quality of heart we seek to cultivate. The practice of metta begins in what might seem like a radical place, with ourselves. In many cultures, the idea of self-love is viewed with suspicion, often confused with narcissism, selfishness, or vanity. But from a Buddhist perspective, offering loving kindness to oneself is the most essential and practical first step. You cannot draw water from a dry well. You cannot offer genuine friendliness and compassion to others if your own inner world is a harsh, arid landscape of self-criticism and judgment. To wish for your own safety, happiness, and peace is not a selfish act. It is the necessary foundation for developing an authentic and sustainable compassion for others. It is filling your own well so that its waters may overflow and nourish the world around you. The formal practice of cultivating metta is a beautiful and gentle form of meditation. It is less about silent observation and more about actively planting wholesome seeds in the garden of the mind. You begin by finding a comfortable and relaxed posture, allowing your body to be at ease. You can gently place a hand over the center of your chest, a simple gesture that brings a sense of warmth and connection to the body. The first step is to awaken a gentle feeling of friendliness within you. For some, this comes easily. For others, it can be difficult. A skillful means is to bring to mind an image of someone or something that naturally evokes a feeling of warmth and uncomplicated love. It could be a beloved mentor, a dear friend, a cherished pet, or even a small, innocent child. You are not thinking about them, but rather, You are trying to bask in the feeling that this image evokes. Once you have connected with this initial spark of warmth, you begin to offer a series of phrases, silently, like a gentle, heartfelt prayer. These are not affirmations meant to force a belief, but rather sincere wishes, offerings from your heart to your own being. The traditional phrases are simple and profound. May I be safe. This is a wish for safety from all inner and outer harm, a wish to be free from the dangers of the world, but also from the dangers of our own destructive thoughts and emotions. May I be happy. This is not a wish for fleeting pleasure, but for a deep, authentic, and lasting well-being, the kind of happiness that comes from a peaceful and liberated heart. May I be healthy. This is a wish for the well-being of the body, for strength and vitality, recognizing the preciousness of this physical form that is the vehicle for our life. May I live with ease. This is a wish for freedom from struggle. It is a wish to move through the world with a sense of grace, peace, and lightness, unburdened by anxiety and stress. You repeat these phrases gently, silently, letting them ride on the rhythm of your breath. You are not trying to force yourself to feel anything. You are simply making the offering. On many days, the inner critic will arise, saying, "You don't deserve this. This is fake. This isn't working." The instruction is to notice this voice, and without engaging it, to simply return to the gentle repetition of the phrases. You are patiently, persistently, planting seeds of kindness in a hard and neglected soil. Once you have spent time offering this loving kindness to yourself, you begin to expand the circle of your benevolence. You bring to mind a benefactor or a dear friend, someone for whom you have great respect and affection. You hold their image in your mind and offer them the same phrases. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Then, you expand the circle further to include a neutral person, someone you see regularly but have no strong feelings about, like a barista at a coffee shop or a person you pass on your commute. You offer them the same sincere wishes. This practice begins to stretch the muscle of your heart, helping you to see the shared humanity in everyone. The more advanced practice involves bringing to mind a difficult person, someone who has hurt you or with whom you have conflict. This is a challenging but deeply healing step. The intention here is not to condone their harmful actions or to force a reconciliation. It is a practice for your benefit. It is an attempt to free yourself from the prison of your own anger and resentment, which harms you far more than it harms them. You offer the phrases as best you can, acknowledging the difficulty, but recognizing that they too are a suffering being, and wishing them freedom from the very poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion that cause them to act in harmful ways. Finally, you expand the circle to its widest point, offering metta to all beings everywhere, without exception, to beings near and far, great and small, seen and unseen. You allow your heart to become a boundless source of goodwill, radiating outward in all directions. There is a dramatic story from the life of the Buddha that shows the immense power of this practice. The Buddha's jealous cousin, Devadatta, conspired to have him killed. His plan was to get the kingdom's largest and most fearsome elephant, Nalagiri, completely intoxicated, and then unleash him on the narrow lane where the Buddha was walking. The plan worked. The enraged, drunken elephant charged down the street, trumpeting with fury, a terrifying, unstoppable force of destruction. People screamed and fled in terror. The Buddha's own followers urged him to run, but the Buddha stood perfectly still. He did not prepare to fight. He did not run away. He simply faced the charging beast and radiated a powerful, unwavering field of pure metta. He flooded the elephant with unconditional, fearless, loving kindness. As the raging animal entered this energetic field, a miracle occurred. Its pace slowed. Its trunk, raised in aggression, lowered. The madness in its eyes was replaced by a look of peace. The great elephant Nalagiri, tamed not by force but by love, walked calmly up to the Buddha and knelt at his feet. Our own anxiety, our fear, our impatience, our raging inner critic, these are our inner Nalagiris. Our habit is to meet these terrifying inner energies with fear and aggression, which only enrages them further. The practice of metta teaches us a new way. It teaches us that we can tame the most savage beasts within our own hearts, not by fighting them, but by meeting them with the disarming, transformative, and boundless power of radical friendliness. It is this warmth that softens the sharp edges of fear and creates a safe, gentle, inner space where we can finally rest. Having learned to meet our inner storms with the clear light of mindfulness and the gentle warmth of loving kindness, we begin to build a new relationship with ourselves. We create a space of acceptance and compassion where before there was only struggle. But this path is long, and the habits of a lifetime are strong. There will be times of dryness, of doubt, of difficulty, times when the fruits of our practice seem distant and the path ahead feels arduous. In these moments, we need more than just technique. We need a source of deep and resilient energy to sustain us. We need a quality that, in English, is called faith. For many of us in the modern world, the very word faith can be a stumbling block. It often carries the connotation of blind belief, of accepting doctrines without question, of suspending our critical faculties in favor of dogma. It can seem like the opposite of the rational, evidence-based mindset that our culture values so highly. If Buddhism is a path of wisdom and clear seeing, how can it also be a path of faith? This apparent contradiction dissolves when we understand the meaning of the ancient Pali word, saddha. Saddha is not blind faith. It is not a leap into darkness. It is the steady, growing confidence that is born from personal experience and verification. If blind faith is closing your eyes and jumping off a cliff, hoping that something will catch you, saddha is like carefully testing a bridge, finding it solid, and then walking across with confident, deliberate steps. The Buddha himself was famously skeptical of blind belief. In a renowned discourse known as the Kalama Sutta, he addressed a group of townspeople who were confused by the many competing spiritual teachers passing through their village, each claiming to have the one true path. The Buddha's advice was revolutionary. He told them, do not go by oral tradition, by lineage of teaching, by hearsay, by scripture, by logical conjecture, by inference, by analogy, by agreement through pondering views, by seeming competence, or because you think, the monk is our teacher. Instead, he instructed them, when you know for yourselves that certain things are unwholesome and lead to harm and suffering, then abandon them. And when you know for yourselves that certain things are wholesome and lead to well-being and happiness, then enter on and abide in them. This is the great charter of free inquiry at the heart of the Dharma. It is an invitation not to believe, but to investigate. From this perspective, saddha is not the starting point of the journey, but a result of it. It is the trust that emerges organically as we practice and see the results for ourselves. It is like learning a new skill, such as swimming. Initially, you might have a sliver of tentative faith in your instructor. You see others swimming and are inspired with confidence that it is possible. This is the first stage of saddha. Then, guided by the instructions, you enter the water. You practice. You feel the strange and wonderful buoyancy of the water holding you up. You learn to coordinate your movements. Slowly, a new kind of confidence arises, one born not from theory, but from direct, felt experience. Eventually, you don't just believe you can swim, you know you can. Your trust in the principles of swimming is unshakable because it has been verified by your own body. This embodied confidence is saddha. In the Buddhist tradition, this wise faith is directed toward three specific focal points, known as the three jewels, or the three refuges. The first is faith in the Buddha. This is not the worship of the historical man, Siddhartha Gautama. It is a deep and inspiring confidence in what he represents, the supreme potential of a human being to achieve liberation through their own efforts. It is the faith that awakening is not a myth or a distant dream, but a real possibility for a human life. And most importantly, it is the growing confidence that this same potential, this seed of Buddhahood, exists within our own hearts. Faith in the Buddha is ultimately faith in our own capacity to awaken. The second is faith in the Dharma. This is not a belief in scripture as infallible dogma. It is the growing trust in the teachings as an accurate description of the fundamental laws of reality. It is confidence in the principles of anicca, anatta, and karma. At first, these may be intellectual concepts, but as we practice, we begin to see them for ourselves. Through mindfulness, we directly witness the impermanence, anicca, of our thoughts and feelings. We investigate our experience and fail to find a solid, separate self, anatta, just as the teachings described. We observe the law of cause and effect, karma, in our own lives, seeing how wholesome intentions lead to peace and unwholesome ones lead to suffering. As we verify the map by walking the territory, our confidence in the accuracy of the map deepens. This is Saddha in the Dharma. The third is faith in the Sangha. This term has two levels. On the conventional level, it refers to the community of fellow practitioners, the monks, nuns, teachers, and lay people who are also on the path. It is the confidence that comes from knowing you are not alone in your journey, from drawing inspiration and support from others who share the same values and aspirations. On a deeper, ultimate level, it is faith in the noble Sangha, the stream of all beings, past and present, who have successfully walked this path and realized its fruits. It is the trust that liberation is not just a theory, but that countless others have achieved it, proving that the path leads where it promises. There is a powerful Zen metaphor that captures the essence of this experiential faith. The path is said to be like a razor's edge, upon which a fine layer of honey has been smeared. You can be told stories about the exquisite sweetness of the honey and the terrible sharpness of the blade. To believe these stories without investigation is blind faith. To reject them without investigation is blind doubt. The wise path is to approach with mindful attention. You move forward with great care, and you gently, cautiously touch your tongue to the blade. In that single, direct experience, you know two things with an intimacy that no story could ever convey: the undeniable sweetness of the honey and the undeniable danger of the blade. The Dharma is exactly like this. It contains the honey of profound peace, boundless compassion, and ultimate freedom, but it also has a sharp edge. It demands that we look directly at the difficult truths of our existence, the reality of suffering, the inevitability of change, the emptiness of our cherished self. Saddha is the confidence of one who has tasted the honey. We have experienced, even for a moment, the peace that comes from letting go, the joy that comes from a moment of pure loving kindness, the clarity that comes from seeing things as they are. We also know the sharpness, the difficulty of facing our own demons, the discipline required for practice. Because we have this direct, personal knowledge, our faith is no longer a fragile belief based on hearsay. It has become a resilient, embodied knowing. It is this kind of verified confidence that becomes the engine of our practice. It is what allows us to persevere when the path is steep and the summit is not yet in view. It is the bedrock of trust that allows us to sit through the storms of our own minds, knowing that the practice of mindfulness and compassion really does lead to safety. It is the faith in the law of karma that allows us to patiently continue planting wholesome seeds, even when we do not see them sprouting. This confidence, born from wisdom and verified by experience, is the fertile ground from which one of the greatest spiritual perfections can grow, the quiet, unwavering, and powerful virtue of patience. We have arrived at a pivotal point on our journey. We have seen how the practice of mindfulness can illuminate our inner world, how loving kindness can soothe its storms, and how a wise faith, a saddha born from experience, can provide the fuel to keep us moving forward. Now, we must explore a quality that is both a cause and a result of these practices, a virtue that is considered one of the great perfections of the heart, a testament to true inner strength. This quality is patience. But the patience we will speak of is not the version so common in our everyday language, which often implies a kind of passive, grudging endurance, a gritting of the teeth while waiting for something unpleasant to end. The patience of the Buddhist path is a far more dynamic, courageous, and powerful force. Its name in the Pali language is khanti, and it is better understood as forbearance, fortitude, and the strength of a warrior. Khanti is not the weakness of a doormat that allows itself to be walked over. It is the unshakable strength of a deep-rooted mountain that remains serene and unmoved, no matter how fiercely the winds of life may howl around it. It is the capacity to withstand adversity, pain, and provocation, without allowing the poisons of anger, resentment, fear, or despair to arise and contaminate the mind. It is an active, resilient, and profoundly wise state of being. The path of cultivating this mountain-like fortitude can be understood by exploring the three primary arenas in which it is practiced. The first and most intimate arena is patience. with oneself and one's own experience. This is the fortitude required to endure the unavoidable pains of life, the first arrows. It is the patience to sit with the physical pain of an illness or injury without adding the second arrow of mental resistance and despair. It is the patience to stay with the profound discomfort of anxiety or grief, allowing these powerful emotional energies to move through you without being swept away by them. It is the patience required in meditation itself, the willingness to sit through restlessness, boredom, or doubt without giving up. Our instinct when faced with discomfort is to thrash against it, to engage in the desperate struggle fueled by the thirst for non-existence. Khanti is the courageous ability to stop that struggle, to meet the raw sensation of discomfort with the calm, steady gaze of mindfulness, and to allow it to be, knowing that it, too, is governed by the law of impermanence. The second arena, and for many the most challenging, is patience with others. This is the forbearance required to navigate the complex, often frustrating, world of human relationships. It is the strength to endure criticism, blame, and misunderstanding without immediately reacting with defensiveness or anger. It is the ability to listen fully to another person, even when we disagree, without the impatient urge to interrupt and assert our own view. It is the capacity to give space to another person's anger or distress, without absorbing it as our own. This kind of patience is not born from weakness, but from a profound wisdom and compassion. We practice Khanti with others by remembering the truths we have explored. We remember anatta, recognizing that their words and actions are not a personal assault on a solid, separate self, but rather the conditioned output of their own complex web of causes and effects. We remember karma, understanding that their unskillful and hurtful actions are seeds they are planting for their own future suffering, which evokes compassion rather than anger. And we practice metta, wishing for them to be free from the very inner poisons that are causing them to act in a harmful way. This is the patience that can absorb harshness and, instead of reflecting it back, transform it into a spacious silence or a compassionate response. The third arena is perhaps the most subtle, yet it is essential for the long journey. It is patience with the Dharma itself. This is the fortitude to accept the slow, gradual, and often non-linear nature of the spiritual path. In our world of instant results, we want enlightenment now. We want our anxiety to be permanently gone after one meditation retreat. We want to read a book and immediately become a master of patience. Khanti is the wisdom that understands that the heart and mind are like a garden, not a factory. Transformation takes time. It requires persistent, gentle, and unwavering effort. It is the patience to accept that we may understand a concept like anicca intellectually for many years before we have a deep, cellular, transformative insight into its truth. It is the patience to continue showing up for our practice, day after day, especially on the days we feel we are making no progress at all. It is the quiet, trusting patience of the bamboo farmer, who diligently waters an empty patch of ground for years, having faith in the unseen growth happening deep beneath the surface. There is a powerful story that beautifully illustrates the unshakable peace that is the fruit of Khanti. There once was a monk, highly respected for his deep meditation, who lived a simple life in a forest hut near a village. In that village lived a young woman who found herself pregnant and was terrified of her parents' reaction. To protect herself and the true father of her child, she concocted a desperate lie. When her parents demanded to know who was responsible, she accused the meditating monk. The news spread through the village like fire. The villagers' respect and admiration for the monk instantly curdled into disgust and rage. They stopped bringing him his daily alms food. When he walked silently into the village, they hurled insults at him, spat on the ground before him, and accused him loudly. When they confronted him, shouting, "You are the father of that child," the monk, with perfect calm and equanimity, would simply reply, "Is that so?" He offered no defense. He made no protest. He simply endured the abuse, the hunger, and the injustice, and continued with his practice, his inner peace completely undisturbed. Months later, the woman gave birth to the child. Overwhelmed by the difficulty of caring for a newborn alone, and consumed by her own guilt, she finally broke down and confessed the truth to her parents. A wave of profound remorse washed over the entire village. They gathered as a large group and went to the monk's hut, falling to the ground before him, weeping and begging for his forgiveness for the terrible wrong they had done him. And as they praised his resilience and apologized profusely, the monk's response was exactly the same as it had been to their accusations. He looked at them with gentle eyes and said, with the same unshakable calm, "Is that so?" This monk's incredible peace was not passivity, it was Khanti. It was the supreme strength born of wisdom. His peace was not dependent on the praise or blame of others. He knew the truth of his own actions, his own karma. He understood that the villagers' anger was a temporary state, fueled by ignorance and subject to anicca. He did not take their accusations as a personal attack, because he understood the truth of anatta, that there was no solid self to be offended. His forbearance was the mountain, and their words were merely the wind. This mountain-like strength is not an innate gift. It is a quality we can all cultivate. It grows directly from the soil of our other practices. Through mindfulness, we learn to catch the first spark of impatience before it becomes a raging fire, giving us the crucial space to choose a wiser response. Through conscious contemplation, we remind ourselves of the laws of reality. We see a difficult situation arise and we think, "This is impermanent. This too shall pass." We see another person acting out of anger and we think, "Their actions are their karma. My calm response is mine." And through metta, we actively soothe ourselves in moments of distress and offer compassion to those who would harm us. We build this muscle in the small moments of daily life, in the traffic jam, in the slow checkout line, in a minor disagreement with a loved one. By practicing with the small frustrations, we build the fortitude to stand with grace and wisdom amidst the great storms of our lives. This is the power of Khanti, the patient heart of the spiritual warrior, the quiet and unshakable peace that can never be taken away. Having laid the foundations of our inner practice, understanding the nature of our mind and the tools we can use to cultivate peace, we now turn our attention outward to the most challenging and rewarding arena of human life, our relationships. It is here, in our interactions with partners, family, friends, and colleagues, that our practice is truly tested. Relationships are the crucible in which our patience, our compassion, and our wisdom are forged. They are our greatest source of joy, connection, and love, and also, so often, our deepest source of frustration, conflict, and suffering. This is the great paradox of the human heart. We seek intimacy, yet we bring our impatience into that intimate space, inadvertently creating the very separation we fear. The primary source of this suffering in our relationships is a fundamental error in perception. We believe we are in a relationship with another person, but most of the time, we are actually in a relationship with our idea of that person. We see them through a dense, complex filter, woven from our own memories of their past behavior, our expectations for their future conduct, our own unmet needs, and our deep-seated desires. We are not interacting with the living, breathing, changing human being in front of us, but with a mental projection, a statue we have built in our own minds. And our impatience is the sound of our chisel, constantly trying to chip away at the real person, attempting to force them to conform to the shape of our statue. This impatient chiseling takes many forms. It is the desire to fix them, to correct their flaws, to guide them toward the person we think they should be, a project born of our own ego rather than their well-being. It is the demand for instant resolution after a conflict, the expectation that they should apologize on our timeline and that forgiveness should be immediate, without allowing space for the slow, tender process of healing and understanding. It is the habit of listening not to comprehend, but to rebut. We hear their words only as a cue for our own, our minds racing to formulate a defense or a counterattack, a clear sign that we are more interested in being right than in being connected. And most pervasively, it is the quickness to judge. We see a momentary action and immediately filter it through the entire library of their past mistakes, reacting not to what is happening now, but to the ghost of what happened years ago. This reactive, impatient state is the battlefield where connection goes to die. But the wisdom of the path offers us a way to transform this battlefield into a sacred garden. It requires us to learn to see our loved ones and ourselves, not with the eyes of judgment, but with Dharma eyes. The first and most powerful shift in perception is to see the other person through the lens of anicca, impermanence. We stubbornly cling to a static image of who they are. We define them by their past actions, holding on to old hurts and grievances like precious, painful treasures. or we cling to an idealized image from the past, the person they were when we first fell in love, and feel frustrated when they inevitably change. Applying the wisdom of Anicca means consciously reminding ourselves that the person standing before us is a flowing river, not a fixed statue. The collection of cells, feelings, thoughts, and perceptions that constitutes your partner today is not the identical collection that existed yesterday, or even an hour ago. They are in a constant state of becoming. This understanding is a powerful solvent for resentment. The person who spoke a harsh word to you yesterday, driven by a momentary storm of anger or stress, is not, in a very real sense, the same person standing before you today. To continue punishing the present person for the actions of a past self is to fight a battle with a ghost. By embracing their impermanence, we give them the space to grow and change, and we give ourselves the gift of freedom from the heavy chains of the past. It also allows us to appreciate the good moments more fully, knowing that a moment of shared joy or deep connection is a fleeting, precious gift. We learn to savor it completely, rather than taking it for granted as a permanent feature of the landscape. The second Dharma I is that of anatta, no self. This is the ultimate antidote to taking things personally, which is the fuel for almost all relational conflict. When our partner is irritable or says something unkind, our immediate, habitual reaction is centered on the ego. You are attacking me. You are hurting my feelings. You are not respecting me. The entire drama revolves around this solid, vulnerable I that feels wounded. The wisdom of anatta invites a revolutionary shift in perspective. It allows us to see that their hurtful words are not a calculated attack on a real and solid me. Rather, their words are an impersonal manifestation of their own suffering. Their anger, their criticism, their frustration is the overflow of their own dukkha. It is the product of their own river of conditioning, their own fears, their own karmic streams. When we can see this clearly, the entire dynamic changes. The thought process shifts from, "You are a bad person for attacking me," to "I see that suffering is present in you, and it is causing you to speak these words." This does not mean we excuse harmful behavior, but it depersonalizes it. It stops the chain reaction of defensiveness and retaliation. It opens a space where compassion, rather than anger, can arise as our first response. With this new way of seeing, we can begin to engage in the sacred, practical arts of patient connection. The first of these is deep listening. This is a form of active mindfulness, and it is utterly different from our usual mode of hearing. We normally listen with an agenda. We are fact-checking, looking for flaws, waiting for our turn to speak, formulating our argument in our head while the other person is still talking. Deep listening means offering the other person the rare and precious gift of our full, undivided, non-judgmental presence. It means putting down the phone, turning away from the screen, and receiving their words, their silences, and their emotions with a quiet, open heart. The goal is not to fix, advise, or even agree. The goal is simply to understand, to listen with such intensity and compassion that the other person feels truly seen and heard, perhaps for the first time. This simple act of patient, present listening can dissolve mountains of misunderstanding and hurt. It creates a sanctuary of safety where honest and vulnerable communication can finally begin. The natural partner to deep listening is loving speech. This is the practice of using our words not as weapons to win battles, but as instruments of healing and connection. It is the understanding that our words have the power to create either suffering or happiness. The principles of loving speech are simple. We speak only what is true, but we are mindful not to use the truth as a club to beat someone with. We use words that are kind, gentle, and constructive. We avoid language that is harsh, blaming, or divisive. We speak with the intention of inspiring confidence, understanding, and hope in the other person. And crucially, loving speech includes the wisdom of silence. Patience in communication is often knowing when not to speak. It is the wisdom to refrain from saying the clever, cutting remark that comes to mind. It is the patience to wait until the storm of anger has passed, in both them and us, before attempting to speak about a difficult issue. It is understanding that sometimes the most compassionate communication is a shared, silent presence. Together, these practices create the ultimate gift we can give in a relationship, the gift of space. True love is not a cage, however gilded. It is not about possession, management, or control. It is about creating a vast, open, and safe garden where another human being feels free to be exactly who they are and has the space to grow into who they are becoming. Patience is the very substance of this sacred space. It is the trust we place in their process. It is the willingness to let them unfold according to their own timeline, not ours. It is the understanding that a flower cannot be forced open. It must bloom in its own time. There is a classic Zen story that perfectly encapsulates this entire teaching on patience, judgment, and letting go in our relationships. Two monks, one senior and one junior, were on a long journey. They came to a river that was swollen and muddy from recent rains. A beautiful young woman in a fine silk kimono stood by the bank, distressed, as she could not cross without ruining her clothes. The junior monk, a very serious and devout man, strictly followed the monastic precepts, which forbade touching a woman. He immediately looked away, pretending not to see her plight. The senior monk, however, looked at the woman, looked at the river, and without a word, walked over, swept her up into his arms, and carried her through the churning water to the other side. He gently set her down, she bowed in gratitude, and he continued on his way. The two monks walked on in silence, but the junior monk's mind was a raging storm. He was scandalized by his master's blatant violation of the rules. He was filled with judgment, anger, and confusion. He replayed the scene over and over in his mind, his inner turmoil growing with every step. For hours, he walked in agitated silence. Finally, as they neared their destination for the evening, he could bear it no longer. He burst out, "Master, how could you do that? We monks are sworn not to go near women, especially a young and lovely one. It is a serious transgression. You set a terrible example." The senior monk looked over at his young companion, his eyes filled with a gentle, compassionate amusement. "Oh," he said softly, "I left the girl back there at the river. Are you still carrying her?" This story is a profound teaching on the nature of mental burdens. The senior monk acted with spontaneous compassion in the present moment, addressed the need that was right in front of him, and then let the moment go completely. His mind was free, light, and unburdened. The junior monk, while outwardly adhering to the letter of the law, was completely imprisoned by his own mind. He was the one who was truly carrying the woman, along with the heavy baggage of his judgment, his anger, and his righteousness, for miles and miles down the road. In our relationships, how often are we like the junior monk? We carry past hurts, old arguments, and catalogues of grievances with us for weeks, months, even years. This immense, invisible weight makes it impossible to meet our partner in the present moment with freshness and an open heart. Patience, forgiveness, and love are the act of learning to leave the girl at the river. It is the courageous act of letting go of the past, again and again, so that we can show up for the person in front of us, right here, right now, ready to begin anew. This is how we transform our relationships from a battlefield of egos into a beautiful garden, a shared sanctuary where two people can finally, patiently, and peacefully bloom. The principles of patience and presence we have been cultivating are not meant to be confined to our meditation cushion or our most intimate relationships. They are designed to be brought into every corner of our lives, especially into the areas that cause us the most stress and anxiety. For many of us in the modern world, that area is our career. Our work is no longer just a means to earn a living. It has become a primary stage upon which we construct our identity, measure our self-worth, and pursue our happiness. It has become a modern arena of perpetual striving, a place where the feeling of not enough runs rampant. Our culture glorifies the hustle, a state of constant busyness and relentless ambition, where to be still is to fall behind. This environment creates a powerful impatience, a chronic thirst to become the person who has the next promotion, the higher salary, the more impressive title. And this culture of striving is the breeding ground for two of the most potent poisons of the professional mind: the poison of comparison and the poison of imposter syndrome. Comparison is the silent thief of joy. It is the deeply ingrained mental habit of measuring our own journey against the perceived journeys of others. In the past, this might have been limited to a small circle of colleagues or friends, but in the age of social media, this poison has been weaponized and scaled to a global level. Platforms like LinkedIn have become vast, curated galleries of professional success. We scroll through an endless highlight reel of other people's achievements, The celebratory posts about new jobs, the photos from prestigious conferences, the glowing announcements of product launches and company growth. We are presented with a flawless, polished, and triumphant public image. Then, we compare this curated fantasy to the messy, complicated, and often frustrating reality of our own daily work. We see their highlight reel, but we experience our own behind-the-scenes footage, complete with all its doubts, struggles, setbacks, and boring moments. This is a game that is fundamentally rigged, a comparison designed to make us feel inadequate, impatient with our own progress, and perpetually behind. The direct antidote to the poison of comparison and its sister, envy, is a beautiful quality of the heart known as mudita, or sympathetic joy. Mudita is the practice of learning to feel genuine, unselfish happiness in the good fortune of others. It is a radical act that short-circuits the ego's competitive, zero-sum game, which falsely believes that another's success somehow diminishes our own. The practice is simple and intentional. When you see a post about a colleague's promotion, and you feel that familiar, painful pang of envy, you pause, you take a breath, and you consciously plant a different seed. You say to yourself, silently, "How wonderful for them. They have worked hard for that. May their success bring them true happiness. May their good fortune continue." At first, this might feel artificial, but with practice, it begins to transform the heart. You start to understand that the world is not a small pie where another's slice makes yours smaller. You begin to cultivate a sense of abundance and connection, realizing that we are all part of a larger human tapestry. You turn a moment of potential suffering into a moment of shared joy, an act that frees you from the exhausting and painful prison of comparison. The second poison, which often grows in the soil of comparison, is imposter syndrome. This is the persistent, nagging inner voice that whispers, "You are a fraud." It is the secret fear that you do not deserve your accomplishments, that your successes are due to luck or some form of deception, and that at any moment you will be exposed and found out. This feeling can be especially strong when we achieve a new level of success, creating a terrible paradox where the very thing we were striving for becomes a new source of anxiety. Here, the wisdom of anatta, or no self, provides a powerful lens. Imposter syndrome is the acute suffering of a fictional self. The imposter you fear you are is nothing more than a story, a collection of insecure thoughts. And the perfectly competent, deserving professional you think you are supposed to be is also just another story, another mental construction. There is no solid, permanent imposter to be found, just as there is no solid, perfect professional to be found. There is only the flow of experience, moments of clarity, moments of confusion, moments of success, moments of failure. The practice for working with imposter syndrome is one of mindful recognition. When the thought arises, "I don't belong here, I'm a fraud," instead of either believing it or arguing with it, you simply note its presence. Ah, the imposter story has appeared. You observe it, as you would observe any other thought, without judgment. You notice the feelings it creates in the body, perhaps a tightening in the chest or a knot in the stomach. You see the thought not as a statement of fact, but as a fleeting mental event, like a dark cloud passing through the vast sky of your awareness. By observing it with this detached, compassionate curiosity, you cut its roots. You are no longer identified with it. The story loses its power when you see that it is just a story. Ultimately, the path to a more patient and peaceful professional life lies in a radical shift of intention, a shift from an obsession with outcomes to a dedication to the process itself. This is the law of karma applied to our craft. Imagine a master sculptor who is tasked with carving a magnificent statue of the Buddha from a huge block of granite. She does not begin by obsessing over the unveiling ceremony, the praise she will receive, or the payment for her work. To do so would be to fill her mind with the anxieties of the future and rob her of the focus needed for the present task. Instead, her entire being is absorbed in the process. Her mind is quiet, her attention concentrated. With each tap of the hammer on the chisel, her sole intention is to do that one action with perfect skill and care. Her work is a meditation. She understands that she is not creating a Buddha statue. She is simply, patiently, chipping away everything that is not the Buddha, revealing the form that is already dormant within the stone. We can learn to approach our own work in this way, whether we are a software engineer, a teacher, a parent, or an artist. we can bring a quality of craft and mindful attention to the task at hand. We can shift our primary question from, "What will this get me?" to, "How can I do this well, right now?" When we are writing an email, we can focus on writing it with clarity and kindness. When we are in a meeting, we can focus on listening with our full attention. When we are performing a routine task, we can do it with a quiet dignity and care. We focus on planting wholesome seeds of diligence, integrity, and skill in the soil of the present moment. Patience becomes a natural byproduct of this absorption. We are no longer restlessly waiting for the future reward, because we are finding a deep sense of meaning and satisfaction in the quality of our present moment work. The promotions, the recognition, the success if and when they arrive, they are no longer the desperate goal. They are simply the natural ripening of the fruit from the excellent seeds we have so patiently and mindfully sown. By letting go of our frantic chase for future outcomes, we reclaim our work from being a source of constant anxiety and transform it into a rich and rewarding field for the practice of wisdom and peace. Our exploration of a patient and peaceful life has led us through the inner landscapes of the mind and the outer arenas of our relationships and careers. Now, we must turn our attention to one of the most powerful and pervasive forces that shapes our modern existence, our relationship with the material world. We live in a civilization built upon a single powerful promise, the promise of more. We are surrounded, from the moment we wake to the moment we sleep, by a relentless torrent of messages telling us that our happiness, our fulfillment, and our peace of mind are located just one purchase away. A new car does not just promise transportation, it promises freedom, status, and adventure. A new smartphone does not just promise communication, it promises connection, power, and efficiency. A new item of clothing does not just promise warmth, it promises beauty, confidence, and desirability. This entire economic and cultural system is a vast and sophisticated engine for generating tanana, the insatiable thirst for what we do not have. It is a system designed to convince us that our sense of well-being is something to be acquired externally, something we can add to a shopping cart. This belief traps us on what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. We work incredibly hard to earn the money to buy the thing we believe will finally make us happy. When we acquire it, the bigger house, the faster car, the more advanced gadget, there is often a genuine, temporary spike of pleasure and satisfaction. But this feeling is, by its very nature, impermanent. Very quickly, a process of adaptation begins. The new and exciting thing becomes the new baseline, the new normal. The initial joy fades, and the familiar, underlying sense of not enough returns. The thirst, now unquenched, simply reorients itself toward a new, even more desirable object. We find ourselves running faster and faster, accumulating more and more, only to find that we have not moved an inch from our original state of inner discontent. Beyond this psychological trap, there is the simple, practical burden of our possessions. Our things, which we acquire to serve us, quickly demand that we serve them. They demand our time, our energy, and our attention. We must work long hours to pay for them. We must clean them, maintain them, organize them, and insure them. We spend our precious mental bandwidth worrying about them being broken, lost, or stolen. The things we own end up owning us. They fill not only the closets and garages of our homes, but the precious, finite space of our minds, leaving little room for stillness, creativity, or peace. The result is a life of perpetual, low-grade impatience, the impatience to acquire the next thing, and the impatience of dealing with the clutter and complexity of all the things we have already acquired. In recent years, a powerful countercurrent has emerged in response to this culture of excess. It is the movement known as minimalism. It champions the idea of decluttering our lives, of owning fewer things, of prioritizing experiences over possessions, and of finding beauty and elegance in simplicity. This modern trend, however, is the new blossoming of a very ancient root. At the heart of the Buddhist path is the principle of nekkhamma, which is most often translated as renunciation. It is the wisdom of letting go. For monks and nuns who choose a monastic life, this renunciation is often external and literal. They vow to own almost nothing, to simplify their lives to the bare essentials in order to dedicate all their energy to spiritual practice. But for those of us living lay lives in the world, the most important form of minimalism is not a matter of external austerity, but of internal freedom. This is a crucial distinction. The Buddhist view of minimalism is not about how many things you own. It is about the degree to which your things own you. A person could live in a stark, empty room and yet be mentally tormented by a constant, burning desire for all the things they lack. Their mind would be cluttered with craving. Conversely, a person could live a comfortable life, surrounded by beautiful objects, yet possess a heart that is utterly free from attachment, able to enjoy things while they are present, and let them go without suffering when they are gone. The goal is not a competition to own the fewest things. The goal is to free the mind from the tyranny of wanting. This internal minimalism is a practice of mindful letting go. It begins with mindful consumption. Before making a new purchase, we can pause and ask ourselves a series of honest questions. What is the true motivation behind this desire? Is this a genuine need, or is it a momentary craving, a desire to soothe a feeling of boredom, anxiety, or inadequacy? Do I believe on some level that acquiring this object will fundamentally change my happiness? By simply bringing this conscious inquiry to the act of consumption, we can begin to break the spell of the hedonic treadmill. We also practice by mindfully decluttering our existing possessions. This process need not be a chore, but can be transformed into a profound meditation on non-attachment. As we pick up each object, we can hold it for a moment and consciously reflect on its role in our life. We can feel a sense of gratitude for the service it has provided. And then, as we decide to let it go, we can do so with a sense of gentle release, wishing it well, hoping it may be of service to its next owner. Each object released is a small lesson in letting go, a physical rehearsal for the deeper letting go that is required of the heart. This is because the real path of renunciation leads us beyond the physical and into the realm of the mind. The most stubborn and painful clutter is not in our closets, but in our consciousness. The truest freedom comes from learning to let go of our mental attachments. We learn to let go of our rigid ideas and opinions. We so often fuse our identity with our beliefs. We think, I am a person who believes this, and so when our beliefs are challenged, we feel that our very self is being attacked. The practice of renunciation is to hold our views more lightly, to see them as temporary perspectives rather than absolute, eternal truths. It is the humility to be able to say, this is my current understanding, but I could be wrong. We learn to let go of our clinging to identities. The mind loves to create solid labels for itself. I am a leader. I am an artist. I am a victim. I am a failure. We cling to these roles, but they are cages that limit us. When a life event threatens one of these identities, if we lose our job, for example, we can experience immense suffering because we feel we have lost ourself. The practice of letting go is to see these as temporary costumes we are wearing, not the essence of our being. We are the actor, not the role. And most profoundly, we learn to let go of our expectations. We carry around a detailed mental script for how our life should unfold, how our partner should behave, how our career should progress. This script is a constant source of impatience and disappointment, because the messy, unpredictable flow of life rarely conforms to our neat and tidy narrative. To practice letting go of expectations is to engage with reality as it is, not as we demand it to be. It is the art of setting a clear intention, of steering the ship of our life with skill and purpose, but at the same time, relinquishing our desperate need to control the wind and the tides. There is a simple and beautiful story that captures the very essence of this liberated state of mind. There was a wandering monk whose only worldly possession was a simple wooden begging bowl. He had owned it for many years. It was the vessel that allowed him to receive the food that sustained his life, and he cared for it meticulously. One day, as he was washing it in a stream after his meal, it slipped from his wet hands, struck a sharp rock, and shattered into a dozen pieces. A villager who was walking nearby saw what happened, and his heart went out to the monk. He imagined the old man's distress at losing his one and only possession. He rushed over to offer his condolences, but when he reached the stream, he stopped in his tracks, completely bewildered. The monk was not distraught. He was not lamenting his loss. He was sitting on the bank, looking at the broken shards of wood, and on his face was a gentle, serene smile. The villager asked, "Venerable sir, your bowl is broken. It was all you had. How can you possibly be smiling?" The monk looked up, his eyes clear and bright. "The bowl was always broken," he replied softly. "Its true nature was to be temporary, just like everything else. I simply had the great pleasure of using it while it was whole. Today, its journey as a bowl has come to its natural end. The monk's profound peace was possible because it was never located in the bowl. His happiness was not dependent on an external, breakable object. His wealth was not the wooden bowl. His wealth was his contentment, his santuti, an inner quality of sufficiency and peace that could not be shattered by any external event. This is the ultimate freedom that the path of minimalism and renunciation points us toward. True wealth is not found in having more, but in wanting less. It is the realization that the source of our well-being is not out there in the world to be acquired, but is right here, within us, waiting to be uncovered. The practice of letting go is not, therefore, about deprivation. It is about creating space. When we release our clinging to possessions, we create physical space in our homes. When we release our frantic striving, we create temporal space in our schedules. And most importantly, when we release our clinging to ideas, identities, and expectations, we create a vast and liberating space in our minds. A mind that is constantly grasping is like a clenched fist. It is tense, rigid, and unable to receive anything new. A mind that has learned the art of letting go is like an open hand. It is relaxed, spacious, and able to interact with the flow of life with grace and ease. In this inner spaciousness, the restless energy of impatience cannot find a foothold, and a deep, abiding, and unbreakable contentment finally has the room to grow. We have learned to loosen our grip on the material world, to find a sense of wealth not in accumulation but in contentment. This practice of letting go, however, must now extend beyond the physical objects in our homes and into the very architecture of our minds. We must learn to let go of our attachment to one of our most cherished and seductive creations, our plans for the future. The human mind is a master architect. It is a miracle of foresight and strategy. This ability to project ourselves into the future, to anticipate needs, to set goals, and to create step-by-step plans is a fundamental reason for our species' success. It allows us to build cities, compose symphonies, conduct scientific research, and organize our daily lives. The plan is an essential and powerful tool, but like any powerful tool, it can become a source of great suffering when we misunderstand its proper use. The shadow side of our planning genius is that we fall in love with our own blueprints. We don't just create a plan, we become attached to it. We fuse our identity with it. We draft intricate narratives for how our career should progress, how our relationships should evolve, how our children should behave, how our vacations should unfold. We create a detailed, idealized story of the future, and then we mistake this mental construction for reality itself. We forget that the map is not the territory. The immense anxiety, frustration, and impatience we so often feel in life arises from this single error. It is the painful friction between our rigid, static, and beautiful plan and the messy, fluid, and unpredictable reality of life. We suffer not because things have gone wrong, but because they have gone differently than our cherished blueprint dictated. This struggle against the unplanned turns of life is, at its heart, a futile battle against the law of anicca, of impermanence. We have seen how everything is a flowing river, and yet, when it comes to our future, we act as though we can command this river to flow in a perfectly straight, man-made canal. We pour immense energy into shoring up the banks, trying to force the wild currents of life into a predictable channel. And when a storm comes, when the river floods its banks and carves a new path through the landscape of our lives, we are left standing in shock and despair beside the ruins of our failed engineering project. You can hear the language of this battle in the constant inner monologue of shoulds that plagues the planning mind. I should have been promoted by now. My partner should have understood what I meant. This project should have been easy. Every should is a declaration of war against what is. Every should is a judgment that reality has made a mistake. It is the indignant voice of the ego, the fictional CEO we call the self, believing that it is in charge and that its strategic plan is infallible. When the plan fails, this fictional self feels it has failed, and it panics. To understand anatta, to see that this planner is just a conditioned series of thoughts, allows us to begin to relax our death grip on the illusion of control. It allows us to hold our plans with a lighter touch. There is a timeless Zen story that perfectly illustrates the profound wisdom of surrendering our rigid judgments about whether an event is good or bad according to our plan. It is the story of an old farmer and his horse. The farmer lived in a poor village and had only one horse, which was his most prized possession. One day, the horse broke through its fence and ran away. The farmer's neighbors all came to console him. "This is terrible," they said. "What bad luck." The old farmer simply looked at them and replied, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?" The neighbors went away, shaking their heads at the old man's strange response. A week later, the farmer's horse returned, and it was not alone. It had brought with it a herd of 10 magnificent wild horses. The farmer and his son now had 11 horses. The neighbors rushed over, their faces beaming with excitement. "This is incredible," they exclaimed. "What wonderful good luck." The old farmer just smiled and said, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?" The next day, the farmer's only son set about trying to tame one of the wild horses. The horse was powerful and unruly. It threw the son to the ground, and the young man's leg was badly broken. The neighbors once again gathered, their faces full of sympathy. "Oh, what a terrible disaster," they lamented. "Your only son, now crippled. This is surely the worst of luck." The farmer, looking at his son's bandaged leg, calmly replied, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?" A few weeks passed, and military officials marched into the village. A brutal war had broken out, and they had come to conscript every able-bodied young man into the army. They went from house to house, taking the sons of all the farmers' neighbors. It was a terrible, sorrowful day, as everyone knew that most of the young men would never return. When the officials came to the farmer's house, they saw his son lying with his broken leg, and they passed him by. He was spared. The neighbors, their eyes filled with tears for their own lost sons, came to the farmer. "You were right," they said. "Your son's accident. It was the greatest of blessings. What incredible good luck you have." The old farmer simply smiled, and for the last time said, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?" This parable teaches us about the profound limitations of our own perspective. We are so quick to label events, to categorize them as successes or failures based on how they align with our immediate, short-term plans. But we never see the whole picture. The universe operates with a logic and a timeline that is vaster and more complex than our minds can ever comprehend. An event that shatters our plans today and seems like a catastrophe might be the very seed of our greatest liberation tomorrow. This understanding does not ask us to be passive, but it does ask us to be humble. It asks us to hold our judgments and our plans with a spacious and patient heart. The alternative to the rigid, brittle planning of the fearful mind is not chaos or aimlessness. It is the practice of soft planning, the way of the wise navigator. A skilled sailor begins her journey with a clear destination in mind. This is her intention. She studies the charts. She checks the weather. She prepares her vessel with diligence. This is her preparation. But once she leaves the harbor, she does not expect the wind and the sea to conform to her predictions. She knows they are wild, powerful, and unpredictable forces. Her great skill lies not in commanding the elements, but in her ability to respond to them with wisdom and flexibility. She is constantly adjusting her sails, reading the shifting currents, and using the available energy of the present moment to continue moving in the direction of her ultimate goal. Her intention is firm, but her methods are fluid. She knows how to dance with the wind. This is the way we can learn to live our lives. We can have our hopes, our dreams, and our goals. We can make our plans with intelligence and care, but we hold them lightly, as a provisional map, not a sacred scripture. When life presents an unexpected storm or sudden illness, a heartbreaking loss, a professional setback, we do not treat it as the end of the journey. We see it for what it is. The wind has changed. We allow ourselves to feel the disappointment, the grief, the fear. But then, we look at our new position on the map. We assess the new conditions, and with patience and resilience, we ask ourselves, given where I am now, given the winds that are blowing today, how can I best adjust my sails? Patience, in this context, becomes the calm, spacious awareness that allows us to absorb the shocks of life without panic. It is the inner quiet that allows us to respond with wisdom and grace, rather than reacting with fear and despair. It is the profound peace that comes from surrendering our desperate need to control the uncontrollable, and trusting that even when our personal blueprints are torn to shreds, a larger, more interesting, An ultimately more beautiful story is always unfolding. We have learned to dance with the inherent uncertainty of life, to hold our plans lightly, and to find a resilient peace by letting go of our need for control. This acceptance of the world as it is, rather than as we demand it to be, naturally leads us to a profound and liberating question. If our happiness is not exclusively located at the destination, at the successful completion of our goals, then where is it to be found? Our entire culture has trained us to believe in a narrative of arrival. We are taught from a young age to postpone our well-being, to treat our present moments as mere currency to be spent in exchange for a future paradise. We tell ourselves, when I graduate, then I will be free. When I get married and have a family, then my life will be complete. When I finally get that promotion, then I will feel successful. When I retire, then I will finally have time to relax and be happy. This pervasive mindset is known as the arrival fallacy. It is the deeply mistaken belief that there is a finish line in the future where a permanent state of contentment is waiting for us. We treat our lives not as a reality to be lived, but as a problem to be solved, a race to be won. The present moment, which is the only time we are ever actually alive, becomes devalued. It is seen as an obstacle, a tedious interlude, a period of waiting that must be endured on the way to the real life that is always just around the corner. This way of living is a blueprint for perpetual dissatisfaction. We are always striving, always reaching, always living for a future that never quite materializes in the way our imagination promised. And even on the rare occasions when we do achieve a long-sought goal, the happiness is often surprisingly fleeting. The hedonic treadmill begins to turn, the initial joy fades, and our thirsty, seeking mind quickly establishes a new, even more distant destination, perpetuating the exhausting cycle of striving and waiting. We spend our whole lives preparing to live, without ever truly living at all. The wisdom of the Buddhist path offers a radical and simple corrective to this fallacy. It reminds us of a truth so obvious that we constantly overlook it. Your life is not happening in the future. Your life is not a memory of the past. Your life is only ever happening in this present moment. The succession of nows that make up your days is not a dress rehearsal. This is it. This is the main event. To be mentally absent from the present moment is to be absent from your own life. When we are constantly preoccupied with future destinations, we become ghosts sleepwalking through our own existence. We eat our meals without tasting the food, our minds already on the next task. We walk through a beautiful park without seeing the trees, our minds lost in a worry about work. We sit with our loved ones, but we do not truly hear them, our minds busy formulating our own stories. We miss the warmth of the sun on our skin, the sound of rain on the window, the feeling of our own breath moving in and out of our body. We miss everything. Imagine life as a grand journey, a long hike up a beautiful mountain. If a hiker is completely obsessed with reaching the summit, his entire experience will be one of toil and effort. He will stare at the path in front of him, his head down, his mind fixed on the goal. He will measure his progress only by how much closer he is to the top. In his single-minded pursuit, he will miss the delicate wildflowers blooming beside the trail. He will not hear the song of a hidden bird in the trees. He will not feel the refreshing coolness of a forest stream on his face. He will not pause to appreciate the breathtaking view from a lower ridge. For him, the entire hike is a burden to be endured for the sake of a single brief moment of triumph at the summit. The wise hiker, however, understands that the summit is merely a direction, a guiding star. The hike is the actual experience. She walks with a relaxed and open awareness. She savors each step on the earthy path. She delights in the unexpected beauty she finds along the way. Her happiness is not held hostage, waiting for her at the peak. It is found all along the trail, in the very act of walking. How then do we learn to walk in this way? How do we shift our focus from the destination to the journey? This requires a conscious retraining of our attention, a practice of savoring the small, ordinary moments that we so often dismiss as insignificant. We typically associate mindfulness with working through difficult experiences, but it is just as crucial for learning to fully receive and appreciate pleasant ones. We have a strange habit of rushing through our good moments, barely noticing them before our mind is already on to the next problem to solve or goal to achieve. The practice is to intentionally slow down and marinate in the simple goodness of the present. You can begin with your first cup of coffee or tea in the morning. Instead of gulping it down while scrolling through the news on your phone, you can decide to make the first 3 sips a meditation. You can notice the comforting warmth of the mug in your hands. You can inhale the rich aroma before you even taste it. You can take a small sip and let the flavor spread across your tongue, truly savoring it. You are not trying to get the caffeine into your system. You are simply enjoying the experience of drinking. When you take a walk, instead of being lost in a mental podcast of worries and plans, you can bring your attention to your senses. Feel the sensation of the breeze on your skin. Notice the specific, intricate patterns on a single leaf. Listen to the sound of your own footsteps on the pavement. You are not trying to get anywhere, you are simply walking. This practice extends to appreciating the effort of our work, not just the results. This connects to the quality of virya, or right effort. We can learn to find a clean, quiet joy in the feeling of our own mind being focused and engaged. When working on a challenging task, we can appreciate the diligence and skill we are bringing to it, moment by moment. The satisfaction comes not only from the finished product, but from the integrity of the process. It is the joy the sculptor feels in the patient tapping of the chisel, not just in the future unveiling of the statue. It can be helpful to shift our guiding metaphor for life. Instead of seeing life as a race, we can learn to see it as a dance. In a race, the entire purpose is to get to the finish line as quickly as possible. The middle is just an inconvenience to be gotten through. But in a dance, the purpose is never to arrive at a particular spot on the floor. The purpose is the dance itself. Every step, every turn, every movement is an integral and joyful part of the whole. There is no destination to rush toward, because the joy is found entirely in the process of moving, in our engagement with the music of the present moment. A dance has fast parts and slow parts, moments of perfect grace and moments of awkward fumbling. Seeing life this way allows us to be more patient and forgiving with ourselves. An awkward step is not a failure, it is just part of the dance. We learn to let go of the need to perform perfectly and instead focus on simply staying engaged with the rhythm of our own life. This does not mean we abandon our goals or our ambitions. The dancer moves with intention and direction. The hiker still keeps the summit in view, but our happiness is no longer contingent upon arriving. We discover that the peace, joy, and meaning we have been searching for in a distant future have been here all along, woven into the very fabric of the present moment, waiting patiently for us to simply notice. We find our home not at the end of the road, but on the path itself, one mindful step, one precious breath, one sacred moment at a time. The journey of patience has led us to dance with uncertainty and to find joy not just in the destination, but in the path itself. This is a beautiful and liberating way to live, when the path is smooth and the weather is fair. But inevitably, the journey of every human life leads through the dark valley of loss. A day comes when we are faced with the sharp, ragged edge of grief. It may be the death of a cherished loved one, the shattering end of a long relationship, the loss of a future we had planned, or a diagnosis that changes everything. In these moments, all our theories about patience and presence are put to the ultimate test. The ground gives way beneath our feet, and we find ourselves in a strange and terrifying new landscape, the landscape of sorrow. Our modern culture is profoundly ill-equipped to help us navigate this territory. We have, in many ways, become complicit in a conspiracy against sadness. Grief is treated not as a natural process, but as a psychological ailment to be cured as quickly as possible. In the raw, disorienting aftermath of a loss, well-intentioned friends and family rush in with a litany of impatient platitudes. Be strong, they say, implying that our tears are a sign of weakness. They wouldn't want you to be sad, they offer, invalidating our very real pain with a projection about the dead. You need to keep busy, they advise, encouraging us to flee from our own hearts. It's time to move on, they declare, imposing an arbitrary timeline on a process that has no schedule. This cultural impatience with sorrow adds a cruel and heavy burden to the person who is grieving. On top of their immense pain, they are now saddled with the feeling that they are doing grief wrong, that they are failing if they are not quickly returning to a state of productive normalcy. This pressure to perform well-being is a terrible second arrow, a layer of shame and isolation that only deepens the wound. The Buddhist path offers a radical and compassionate alternative. It begins by validating the experience of grief completely. Grief is not a problem to be solved. It is not an illness to be cured. It is the natural, honorable, and necessary response of a loving heart to a profound loss. Grief is the echo of love, the testament to the depth of our connection. The pain we feel is a measure of the love we had. To deny our grief, to rush it, or suppress it, is to dishonor the love that gave rise to it. The path, therefore, does not offer a way to bypass or eliminate grief. It offers us a way to be with it wisely, to hold it with a courage and tenderness that allows for true healing. To begin this, we must first abandon any preconceived notions of what grief should look like. Pop psychology has given us the idea of stages of grief denial: anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, which can be helpful, but also misleading if taken as a neat, linear checklist. Grief is not a tidy, predictable process. It is a wild, sacred, and often chaotic territory. It is a weather system of the soul. There will be violent storms of anger and rage, where we rail against the unfairness of the universe. There will be long, dreary seasons of numb, grey fog, where we feel disconnected from everything. There will be sudden, unexpected downpours of tears, triggered by a song, a smell, or a fleeting memory. And, though it may seem impossible in the beginning, there will also be surprising moments of bright, clear sunshine, moments of peace, or even laughter, which can themselves be followed by a wave of guilt. Patience, in this wild landscape, means giving ourselves unconditional permission to experience whatever weather passes through. It is the deep trust that this process, in all its messy and unpredictable forms, has its own intelligence, its own rhythm, its own sacred purpose. Patience is the willingness to let go of the map and simply be with the territory of our own heart. It is the art of allowing time not just to pass, but to heal. The primary practice for this is to bring our mindfulness and our compassion directly to the heart of the pain. We can use the rain of our awareness to shelter ourselves in the storm. We recognize what is present. We name it softly to ourselves. This is grief. This is a wave of overwhelming sadness. This is anger. This is the feeling of loneliness. This simple naming creates a sliver of space, reminding us that we are not the feeling. We are the loving awareness that holds the feeling. We allow the feeling to be here. This is a courageous act of non-resistance. We stop fighting the waves. We let the tears flow if they need to flow. We give the anger permission to exist, without needing to act on it destructively. We allow the profound weariness and emptiness to be present, without judging it as wrong. This allowance is a profound act of self-kindness, and it stops the immense suffering caused by struggling against our own reality. We gently investigate the feeling, not with our analytical mind, but with our body. Where does this grief live in my body right now? We drop the story and tune into the direct physical sensations. Is it a crushing weight on the chest, a burning lump in the throat, a hollow ache in the belly, a leaden heaviness in the limbs? We stay with these raw sensations, breathing with them. In doing so, we discover that even the most overwhelming grief is not a solid, monolithic block of pain. It is a shifting, pulsing, vibrating field of energy, constantly in flux. It is anicca in its most visceral form, and most importantly, we nurture. We offer ourselves an abundance of metta, of loving kindness. We can place a hand on our heart, the universal gesture of comfort. We can speak to ourselves with the words we would offer to a heartbroken child. This hurts so much. I know. It's okay. I am here with you. I will not abandon you. This act of turning toward our own pain with tenderness, rather than aversion, is the most powerful medicine we have. It is the balm that allows the healing to begin. There is no story that illustrates this wise and compassionate approach to grief more beautifully than that of Kisa Gotami and the mustard seed. Kisa Gotami was a young mother whose first and only child, an infant son, had died. She was completely consumed by a desperate, frantic grief, unable to accept the reality of her loss. Clutching the tiny, still body of her son, she wandered through her village, going from door to door, begging everyone she met for a medicine that could bring him back to life. Her neighbors, seeing her madness, pitied her and sent her away. Finally, one wise man, seeing the depth of her suffering, told her, "I have no medicine for you, but I know a great physician who does. Go to the Buddha." She ran to the Buddha's hermitage, laid her child at his feet, and pleaded with him to perform a miracle. The Buddha looked upon her, not with judgment for her denial, but with boundless compassion for her pain. He did not tell her to accept the truth or to move on. He met her exactly where she was. He said to her, "Yes, I can make a medicine to help you, but to do so, I require a special ingredient. You must go back into the village and bring me a single mustard seed, but it must be taken from a house where no Waneno child, no parent, no Savanthus ever died." Kisagotami's heart soared with hope. This seemed like such a simple task. She rushed back to the village and went to the first house. "The Buddha needs a mustard seed for medicine," she said. "Can you spare one?" "Of course," the woman of the house replied. As the woman was fetching the seed, Kisagotami asked, "But tell me, has anyone in this house ever died?" The woman's face fell. "Oh, my dear," she said sadly, "the living are few, but the dead are many. Just last year, my beloved husband died." Disappointed, Kisagotami went to the next house, and the next, and the next, all through the village. The story was the same everywhere. Every family was willing to give her a mustard seed, but every family had a story of loss. "My eldest son died. My mother passed in this very room. We lost our baby sister." House after house, she heard the litany of human sorrow. As the sun began to set, the profound truth of her quest began to dawn on her. She had not found a single house untouched by death. Her personal, isolating agony began to melt away, transformed into a deep, compassionate understanding of a universal condition. She was not alone in her grief. Sorrow was woven into the very fabric of life. The Buddha, in his great wisdom, did not offer her a magic pill to take away her pain. He sent her on a journey, a practice that allowed her to discover for herself the great law of impermanence and the universal nature of suffering. He did not remove her grief. He helped her to hold it in a larger, more compassionate context. Her heart, broken open by her personal loss, now broke open even further to hold the shared sorrow of all beings. This is the beginning of true healing. To heal from loss is not to forget. Many people fear that if their pain subsides, they are somehow betraying the memory of their loved one. They cling to the grief because it feels like the only connection they have left. But healing, from a spiritual perspective, is not erasure. A deep wound may leave a scar. A scar is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of healing. It is a testament to the fact that the skin was broken and that it has knit itself back together, often stronger than it was before. Our hearts, too, can bear scars. They remind us not of the pain, but of the love that made the pain possible. Over a long period of patient and compassionate presence, our grief can become one of our most profound teachers. It teaches us the awesome depth of our own capacity to love. It teaches us, in a way nothing else can, the precious, fleeting nature of life, motivating us to live more fully and to cherish those who are still with us. It can crack open the hard shell of the ego, softening our hearts and making us more available to the suffering of all beings. The journey through grief has no shortcuts and no fixed destination. The greatest patience is the grace we grant ourselves to walk this sacred path at our own pace, honoring our pain as the measure of our love, and trusting that by meeting our own broken heart with mindfulness and endless compassion, we can allow time to do its slow, miraculous work. We can learn to carry our loss, not as a crushing weight that sinks us, but as a tender, sacred space within us. A space that has made our heart larger, wiser, and more capable of love than ever before. Our journey through the inner world has shown us how to be patient with our own healing, to hold our grief with compassion, and to find a resilient peace even in the midst of great loss. We have learned to be present with what is difficult. Now, we must learn to be present with life itself. For most of our waking hours, our minds are engaged in a remarkable and tragic form of time travel. We live as reluctant passengers in a machine we cannot seem to control, constantly being pulled into the murky landscapes of the past or flung into the speculative mirages of the future. The past is a realm of ghosts. We wander its halls, haunted by the ghosts of our regrets, replaying conversations, wishing we had said something different, done something different. We are tormented by the ghosts of shame, cringing at old embarrassments, or we are seduced by the sweet ghosts of nostalgia, clinging to faded glories and past happiness, comparing their golden hue to the dull grey of our present reality. But this entire realm is a phantom world. It exists only as a flickering, unreliable memory trace in the mind. It has no substance. To live there is to be haunted, to be forever chained to that which is no longer real. The future is a realm of mirages. It shimmers on the horizon, a landscape of our deepest hopes and our most terrifying fears. We spend countless hours constructing elaborate fantasies of success, imagining the perfect conversation, the triumphant outcome, the moment when all our problems will finally be solved. Or we spend our energy building detailed horror stories of failure, rehearsing for disasters that will likely never happen, tormenting ourselves with an endless parade of what-ifs. But this realm, too, is a phantom world. It is a projection, a dream, a story with no substance. To live there is to be in a constant state of anxiety, forever chasing a mirage or fleeing from a shadow. Impatience is the very engine of this frantic time travel. It is the fundamental rejection of the present moment. It is the mind's desperate declaration that this moment, right here, is flawed, insufficient, and unacceptable. It is the cry of anywhere but here, any time but now. This constant escape, this refusal to land in our own lives, is the deepest source of our pervasive feelings of disconnection, alienation, and dissatisfaction. We are homesick for a place we have never allowed ourselves to inhabit, the here and now. The most profound teaching of the contemplative path is also the most simple. The past is gone. The future has not yet come. The only time you have ever been alive, the only time you can ever feel the warmth of the sun, taste a drop of water, hear the voice of a loved one, or take a single conscious action is right now. This present moment is not a stepping stone to a more important future moment. It is not a bridge to be crossed as quickly as possible. This present moment, this succession of nows, is your life. It is the destination. When we speak of synchronizing with the universe's timing, we are not speaking of some grand, abstract, cosmic clock. The timing of the universe is the rhythmic pulse of this very second. It is the feeling of your own heart beating. It is the sound of the wind in the trees. It is the light falling on the floor. To be in sync with the universe is simply and profoundly to be fully present for the life that is unfolding in this instant. To practice this is to awaken from a dream. Most of us are sleepwalking through our days, our bodies moving through the world, while our minds are lost in the phantom realms of past and future. To be mindful of the present moment is simply to open our eyes and see where we actually are. This is not some esoteric or mystical state reserved for monks in a monastery. It is our most basic, natural birthright, a state of being that has simply been obscured by a lifetime of habitual, restless thinking. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh offered a beautiful and simple teaching that reveals the universe of wonder hidden within an ordinary moment. It is the practice of eating a tangerine mindfully. You begin by holding the tangerine in your palm. You don't just see a piece of fruit. You look deeply. You see the orange tree that it grew on. You see the sunshine that warmed it, the rain that nourished it, the rich earth that gave it life. You see the hands of the farmer who tended the tree and the person who picked the fruit. You see the entire web of interconnected life that has brought this tangerine into your hand. In this moment, the tangerine is a manifestation of the entire cosmos. Before you eat, you take a moment to smell its fragrance, a gift from the flower and the sun. You peel it slowly, consciously. You are aware of the sound of the delicate skin tearing, the feeling of the cool mist that sprays onto your fingers. You then take a single section and place it in your mouth. And for a moment, you do nothing but taste. You experience the burst of sweetness and tartness, the texture of the fruit, the sensation of the juice. In this moment, you are not just refueling your body. You are in deep, intimate communion with the miracle of life itself. The tangerine is no longer just a thing, it is a wonder. This practice, he taught, is not just about the tangerine. It is about bringing this same sacred quality of attention to every moment of our lives. The miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to walk with presence on this green earth. The miracle is to truly taste the tangerine. This profound state of presence does not require a special time or place. We can anchor ourselves in the here and now at any moment, using simple, portable, micro-meditations that pull us out of the stream of time travel and back into our own bodies. Wherever you are, right now, you can practice by feeling your feet. bring your full attention to the points of contact between the soles of your feet and the floor. Notice the sensation of pressure, of solidity, of texture. For the duration of just 3 slow breaths, be entirely in your feet. In that moment, you have arrived. You are here. You can practice by listening. For a moment, stop trying to name or interpret the sounds around you. Instead, listen as if your ears were microphones, receiving the entire soundscape without judgment. Hear the low hum of a refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic, the chirping of a bird, the sound of your own breathing, all as one unified field of vibration. In that moment of pure listening, the chattering mind falls silent. You can take refuge in 3 breaths. When you feel lost in thought or overwhelmed by emotion, you can pause. Take 1 deep breath, and as you breathe in, be fully aware of the sensation of the breath entering your body. Take a 2nd deep breath, and as you breathe out, consciously let go of any physical or mental tension. Then take a 3rd gentle breath, and simply rest in the quiet, peaceful space at the end of the exhalation. In just 3 breaths, you have returned home to the present. These are not practices designed to obliterate thought. They are gentle anchors that we can drop at any time into the ocean of the present moment. They interrupt the powerful momentum of our habitual thinking and remind us where life is actually happening. This practice of returning, again and again, with kindness and patience, to the here and now, is the heart of a peaceful life. The present moment is not a boring waiting room to be endured. When we meet it with our full, undivided attention, free from the ghosts of the past and the mirages of the future, it reveals its own quiet, simple, and profound magic. It is, as Thich Nhat Hanh taught, always a wonderful moment. To sustain this practice, to consistently bring our wandering mind back home, requires a particular kind of energy. It is not a forceful, tense striving, nor is it a passive, lazy relaxation. It is a skillful, joyful, and diligent engagement with our own heart. This is the quality known as virya, or right effort. Having discovered the profound peace and wonder that reside in the present moment, we are faced with the practical reality of our own minds. The mind is a creature of habit. Its old patterns of wandering into the past and future, of getting lost in worry and distraction, are powerful and deeply ingrained. To consistently bring our awareness back home to the here and now requires a particular kind of energy. It is here that we encounter another essential quality on the path, one that can seem, at first, to contradict everything we have learnt about letting go, acceptance, and non-striving. This is the quality of virya, which is translated from the Pali as energy, diligence, vigor, or effort. How can a path that teaches us to stop struggling also be a path of effort? This is a vital question, and its answer reveals the sophisticated and balanced nature of the practice. The kind of effort we are most familiar with in our culture is a tense, stressful, and often aggressive force. It is the hustle culture effort of clenching our jaw, pushing through exhaustion, and forcing outcomes. This kind of striving is born from anxiety and craving, and it inevitably leads to resistance, frustration, and burnout. It is the opposite of the peaceful mind we are trying to cultivate. Right effort, or virya, is an entirely different kind of energy. It is not the frantic, desperate energy of fear. It is the steady, joyful, and courageous energy of wisdom. It is the difference between a panicked sprint and a graceful, long-distance run. The most beautiful illustration of this balanced energy was given by the Buddha himself in his teaching to a monk named Sona. Sona had been a skilled lute player before his ordination, and he had applied the same intensity to his meditation as he had to his music. He practiced walking meditation until his feet were cracked and bleeding. He pushed himself to the point of utter exhaustion, yet he found his mind was becoming more agitated and restless, not less. He was filled with frustration and was on the verge of giving up the monastic life entirely. The Buddha, knowing what was in Sona's mind, came to him and asked a simple question. Sona, as a layman, were you not skilled in playing the lute? Sona replied that he was. The Buddha then asked, "And tell me, Sona, what happens when the strings of your lute are tuned too tightly?" Sona answered, "Venerable sir, the strings will snap and no music can be played." "And what happens," the Buddha continued, "if the strings are too loose?" "Then, sir, they are too slack to produce any sound at all." "And when?" the Buddha asked. Does the lute produce a beautiful and harmonious sound? Sona replied, "It is when the strings are tuned just right, not too tight and not too loose." In the same way, Sona, the Buddha concluded, effort that is too strenuous leads to restlessness and agitation, and effort that is too lax leads to laziness and indolence. Sona, you must learn to tune the instrument of your own mind, cultivate an energy that is balanced, and you will find the way. This parable of the lute string is the key to understanding right effort. It is not about maximizing force. It is about finding the perfect, sustainable, and harmonious level of energy for our practice. The tight string is the anxious striving, the self-judgment, the impatience that leads to burnout. The slack string is complacency, laziness, and a lack of conviction that leads to our practice stagnating. Virya is the wisdom of finding the middle way between these two extremes. The Buddha did not just provide a beautiful metaphor, he gave a precise and practical guide for how to apply this balanced energy. He described the 4 great efforts, which together form a comprehensive strategy for tending the garden of the mind. The first is the effort to prevent unwholesome states from arising. A wise gardener does not wait for the garden to be overrun with weeds and then begin the arduous task of clearing them. They prepare the soil and are vigilant about preventing weed seeds from taking root in the first place. For us, this means guarding the senses. It is the effort of being mindful of what we consume with our minds and hearts. We recognize that spending hours consuming angry, divisive media will plant seeds of anger and division in our minds. We recognize that endlessly comparing ourselves to others on social media will plant seeds of envy and inadequacy. The effort to prevent is the wisdom to skillfully turn our attention away from these triggers before the unwholesome state has a chance to sprout. The second is the effort to abandon unwholesome states that have already arisen. Despite our best efforts, weeds will sometimes sprout. The seeds of anger, jealousy, greed, or obsessive desire are already present within us from past conditioning. When one of these states arises, the slack string approach is to indulge it, to let it completely take over our mind. The tight string approach is to violently suppress it, to hate ourselves for feeling it. Right effort is the middle path we have already explored. It is the diligent work of mindfully recognizing the unwholesome state, allowing its presence without judgment, investigating its nature, and then gently, persistently, letting it go by returning our attention again and again to a wholesome object, like the breath or a feeling of loving kindness. It is the skill of removing the weed without destroying the entire garden bed in the process. The third is the effort to cultivate wholesome states that have not yet arisen. This is the joyful and creative work of a gardener who actively plants flowers. It is the effort of setting aside time to practice metta meditation, even when we are not feeling particularly angry, in order to build up our reservoir of kindness. It is the effort of deliberately cultivating gratitude by taking time to reflect on the blessings in our life, however small. It is reading inspiring teachings, listening to wise voices, and spending time with friends who uplift us. This is the conscious and joyful work of planting the seeds of peace, compassion, and wisdom in our own minds. The fourth is the effort to maintain wholesome states that have already arisen. When a flower blooms in the garden, a wise gardener protects it and gives it the water and sunlight it needs to flourish. In the same way, when a moment of genuine peace, clarity, or compassion arises in our meditation or our daily life, we make the effort to nurture it. We give it our full attention. We savor it. We protect it from the distraction of the wandering mind. By doing so, we allow these wholesome states to stabilize, to deepen, and to become more of a default setting for our mind, rather than just a fleeting visitor. It is essential to see that this right effort, virya, and the virtue of patience, khanti, are not opposing forces. They are inseparable companions, two wings of a bird that must work in perfect harmony. Imagine you must cross a vast and unforgiving desert. Virya is the energy that compels you to take each step forward. Without this diligent effort, you would simply lie down and give up in despair. But you cannot sprint across a desert. To do so would be to exhaust yourself and perish within the first hour. Khanti is the patience that wisely moderates this energy. It is the fortitude that allows you to walk at a steady, sustainable pace. It is the forbearance to endure the blistering heat and the agonizing thirst without panicking or losing hope. Virya gets you on the path, Kanti keeps you on the path. In our daily practice, virya is the energy that brings us to the meditation cushion each morning. Kanti is the patience that allows us to sit with our restless and distracted mind without becoming discouraged. Virya is the effort it takes to respond to a difficult situation with a kind word. Kanti is the patience to not demand an immediate positive result from that kind word. Right effort is not, therefore, a grim and joyless struggle. It is a joyful diligence. It is the happy, vibrant energy of a person who has found a meaningful task. It is the delight of the gardener who loves their work, who finds satisfaction in the simple, patient acts of cultivating beauty and nourishment. The purpose of this balanced, joyful effort is to prepare the mind, to clear away the weeds of distraction and agitation, and to create an inner environment that is stable, calm, and receptive. When the mind is thus prepared, powered by the harmonious energy of virya, it becomes capable of settling into a state of profound stillness and unity. It is this state of deep collectedness that we will explore next, the state known as samadhi. We have journeyed far along the inner path, learning to meet our experience with the clarifying light of mindfulness and the gentle warmth of loving kindness. We have explored the balanced and joyful energy of right effort, the wise diligence that sustains our practice without leading to burnout. Now, we arrive at the culmination of this training, the state of mind that these practices are designed to produce. We come to the great peak of mental cultivation, a quality known as samadhi. This ancient word is often translated as concentration, but this simple English term barely scratches the surface of its profound meaning. Samadhi is more than just focus. It is a state of deep stillness, of mental unification, of a mind that has become collected, coherent, and imperturbably calm. To understand the beauty of samadhi, we must first appreciate its opposite, the fragmented mind of our everyday experience. For most of us, our consciousness is like a shattered mirror. Our attention is splintered into 1,000 tiny pieces by a constant barrage of external notifications and internal chatter. We attempt to multitask, splitting our focus between an email, a phone call, and a conversation, doing all of them poorly. Our minds are in a perpetual state of restlessness, flitting from thought to thought, from worry to fantasy, like the drunken monkey we have come to know so well. This fragmented state is the very breeding ground of impatience and anxiety. A mind that is scattered cannot rest. It is easily disturbed, highly reactive, and lacks the inner stability to simply be with the present moment. It craves constant novelty and distraction as an escape from its own inner chaos. We live in a state of being mentally ungathered, our precious energy dissipated in all directions. Imagine your awareness is like the light from a bare light bulb. It shines in all directions, but its power is diffuse. It illuminates nothing with any real clarity or intensity. The practice of cultivating samadhi is the art of gathering all of that scattered light and focusing it, through the lens of meditation, into a single, powerful, and coherent beam. This concentrated beam of awareness has the power to be steady, to penetrate the surface of things, and to reveal the hidden truths that a scattered mind can never perceive. It is crucial to differentiate the samadhi of the spiritual path from the ordinary concentration we use in our daily lives. We can be highly concentrated while watching an action movie, playing a video game, or even while consumed by a state of anger or greed. This worldly concentration is often tense, exclusive, meaning it works by forcefully shutting out distractions and can be aimed at unwholesome ends. Right concentration, or samma samadhi, as the eighth factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, is different. It is a state of relaxed, inclusive awareness that is always built upon a foundation of ethics, sila, and powered by wholesome intention. A mind cannot become truly still and collected if it is agitated by the coarse disturbances of guilt, remorse, or a life in disarray. Samadhi arises from a heart that is at peace with itself. The deep, pleasurable states of stillness that emerge from this practice, known as the jhanas, provide a profound sense of well-being that is far more satisfying and sustainable than any fleeting pleasure the world can offer. This inner bliss becomes a powerful motivation to continue on the path, as it provides a healthy alternative to the endless cycle of craving. The most classic and beautiful metaphor for the cultivation of samadhi is that of a muddy lake. Imagine you are walking through a forest and you come upon a large, beautiful lake, but the water is completely murky. stirred up with silt and mud, so much so that you cannot see more than an inch below the surface. You have heard that at the bottom of this lake lie priceless jewels, but in its current state, they are completely hidden. The surface of the water, too, is agitated, and it reflects the sky and the surrounding trees only as a distorted, broken image. This muddy, agitated lake is a perfect image of our ordinary scattered mind, churned up by the 5 hindrances: sensual desire, ill will, laziness, restlessness, and doubt. If you are impatient to see the jewels at the bottom, your first instinct might be to jump into the lake and start thrashing about, trying to push the muddy water away. But, of course, this frantic activity only makes the water even murkier. It stirs up more mud from the bottom and creates more agitation. This is precisely how we often relate to our own minds. We become frustrated by our own mental chaos, and we try to force it to be still. We get angry at our thoughts, we try to suppress our feelings, and in doing so, we only create more inner turmoil. The wise approach is to do nothing at all. You simply sit, quietly and patiently, on the bank of the lake. You protect the lake from any further disturbance. You stop throwing stones of judgment or agitation into it. You simply allow it to be. And then, a natural and effortless process begins. The heavy particles of mud, no longer being stirred up, slowly begin to settle. At first, the change is imperceptible, but gradually, with the passage of time, the water becomes clearer. The sediment gently drifts down to the bottom, and the water becomes progressively more translucent. After a period of this patient and gentle allowing, the lake becomes perfectly still and crystal clear. Now, 2 miraculous things happen. First, the surface of the lake, no longer agitated, becomes a perfect mirror. It reflects the deep blue of the sky, the exact shape of every cloud, and the intricate detail of every leaf on the trees, with perfect, undistorted fidelity. Second, you can now see right through the limpid water to the very bottom. You can see the glittering jewels, the brightly colored fish, the strange and beautiful plant soil, the hidden treasures that were there the entire time, completely obscured by the agitation. This is a precise analogy for the process of meditation. The act of sitting patiently on the bank is the practice of meditation itself, sustained by the balanced energy of virya and the forbearance of khanti. The settling of the mud is the gradual subsiding of the 5 hindrances in the mind. The perfectly still, mirror-like surface of the lake is the state of samadhi. A mind in samadhi reflects reality exactly as it is, without the distortions of craving, aversion, or delusion. And the ability to finally see the jewels at the bottom is the arising of prajna, or wisdom. This is the moment of vipassana, of clear seeing. With a mind that is stable, calm, and unified, we can for the first time see the true nature of our experience directly. We are no longer just thinking about impermanence. We see the constant arising and passing of sensations and thoughts. We are no longer just theorizing about no self. We see directly that there is no solid I to be found. The profound truths of the Dharma are revealed not as a philosophy to be believed, but as a reality to be witnessed. These 2 aspects of the practice, calm abiding, shamatha, and clear seeing, vipassana, are the 2 wings of the bird of enlightenment. They are inseparable. Shamatha is the practice of settling the mud, of developing the stable, concentrated mind of samadhi. Vipassana is the practice of seeing the jewels, of developing the penetrating wisdom of prajna. A mind that is not calm cannot see clearly, and the wisdom that arises from clear seeing, for instance, seeing that clinging is the true cause of suffering, naturally brings about a deeper sense of calm. Stillness gives birth to wisdom, and wisdom deepens that stillness. The fruit of this unified practice is liberation itself. When the mind is suffused with the bright, coherent light of samadhi, the dark corners where the roots of suffering hide are illuminated. Ignorance, the fundamental misperception of reality, cannot survive in this light. Craving and aversion, which are born from ignorance, wither and die for lack of their usual food. A mind that is concentrated is a mind that is patient. It is no longer a slave to the impulsive whims of the monkey mind, because it has found a source of deep well-being and stability within itself. It can abide in the present moment with a sense of unshakable peace, because the present moment is no longer a boring or threatening place to be. It is a place of profound stillness and clarity. With a mind that has been purified by ethical living, energized by right effort, and unified by right concentration, we arrive at the final vista of the path. We now possess the capacity to look upon all the changing circumstances of life, the joys and the sorrows, the praise and the blame, with a serene and unshakable balance. What is this ultimate state of equipoise? What is the quality of heart that allows us to love the world without clinging to it, and to feel its pain without being broken by it? This leads us to the final perfection of the heart, the sublime and peaceful state of upekkha, or equanimity. Our journey along the path of practice has been one of deep cultivation. We have learned to tend the garden of the mind with diligence and care. We have illuminated its dark corners with the light of mindfulness. We have watered its soil with the loving kindness of metta. We have patiently endured its seasons with the strength of khanti. We have energized its growth with the balanced effort of virya, and we have allowed it to settle into the profound, clear stillness of samadhi. Now, we arrive at the summit. We come to the ultimate fruit of this entire path, the quality of heart that blossoms when all these other virtues have come to full maturity. This is the sublime and peaceful state of upekkha, or equanimity. Like the other great virtues of the heart, equanimity is a concept that is easily misunderstood. To the modern ear, it can sound like indifference, apathy, or a cold, detached withdrawal from the world. It can conjure an image of a person who simply does not care, who is unmoved by joy and untouched by sorrow. But this is a profound misreading. Apathy is a state of contraction, of a heart that is shut down in fear or despair. True equanimity, upekkha, is the very opposite. It is a state of immense expansion, of a heart that has become so vast, so stable, and so open that it can hold the entirety of the human experience without being disturbed. It is not freedom from feeling, it is the freedom within feeling. To understand the power of equanimity, we must first recognize the condition it remedies. The ordinary, untrained mind is like a small boat tossed about on a stormy sea. Our inner peace and happiness are almost entirely dependent on external conditions. The Buddha described this state of dependency with the image of the 8 worldly winds. These are 4 pairs of opposites that constantly blow through our lives, pushing us back and forth and keeping us in a state of perpetual instability. The first pair is pleasure and pain. We spend our lives constantly chasing pleasant sights, sounds, tastes, feelings, and thoughts, and desperately trying to avoid unpleasant ones. Our happiness rises and falls with the fleeting tides of sensation. The second pair is gain and loss. We feel elated when we acquire wealth, possessions, or status, and we are plunged into despair when we lose them. Our sense of self-worth becomes tied to these external, impermanent things. The third pair is fame and disrepute. The ego delights in being known, praised, and respected. It feels a thrill at seeing its name in lights, and it feels a corresponding terror at being unknown, ignored, or spoken ill of. The fourth pair is praise and blame. We feel a sense of validation and joy when someone offers us a compliment, and we feel the sharp sting of pain and anger when someone criticizes us, whether their criticism is just or unjust. To be at the mercy of these 8 winds is to live on a roller coaster. We are constantly being lifted up by gain and praise, only to be plunged down by loss and blame. There is no real, lasting peace to be found in such a life. It is a life of reactivity, of being a puppet whose emotional strings are pulled by the changing circumstances of the world and the fickle opinions of other people. Upekkha is the practice of cutting these strings. It is the cultivation of an inner center of gravity, so profound and so stable that we can remain balanced and upright, no matter which of the 8 winds may be blowing. The most powerful image for the mind of equanimity is that of a great, ancient mountain. Imagine this mountain, its roots deep in the earth, its rocky slopes solid and strong, its peak reaching into the sky. The mountain exists in the midst of the world, and it experiences all of the world's weather. In the spring, gentle breezes caress its slopes. In the summer, the sun beats down with scorching heat. In the autumn, fierce gales howl around its cliffs, trying to push it over. And in the winter, torrential rains and heavy snows lash against it, trying to wear it down. But through all of this, the mountain remains utterly, profoundly itself. It does not rejoice when the sun shines, nor does it complain when the storm rages. It does not resist the wind or cling to the warmth. It simply allows the weather of the world to come and go, to play across its surface, while its own deep, silent, and immense presence remains completely undisturbed. This is upekkha. The equanimous mind is not removed from the world. It is fully present for all of life's weather, but its peace is no longer contingent on that weather. Its stability comes from a deep, internal source, from its roots in wisdom. And what are these roots? They are the deep, experiential understanding of the laws of reality we have been exploring. The mind of equanimity remains balanced in the face of praise and blame because it understands anatta. It knows there is no solid, separate self to be praised or blamed. It remains balanced in the face of gain and loss because it understands anicca. It knows that all conditioned things are impermanent and that to cling to them is to create suffering. It remains balanced in the face of pleasure and pain because it understands karma. It sees the lawful and impersonal unfolding of cause and effect, and it has found a deeper pleasure in stillness that is not dependent on fleeting sensations. It is crucial to understand that this unshakable stability is not coldness. Upekkha is not the absence of love, but its highest and most balanced expression. It is the quality that holds the other three divine abodes: loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy in perfect harmony. Imagine a loving parent watching their young child learn to walk. The parent's heart is filled with metta, a boundless wish for the child's happiness. When the child takes a few successful steps, the parent feels mudita, a genuine joy in the child's success. When the child stumbles and falls, the parent feels karuna, a deep compassion for the child's pain. But the parent does not panic when the child falls. They do not rush in to prevent every single stumble. They hold all of these feelings within a wider, wiser container of upekkha. They know that falling is a natural and necessary part of learning to walk. Their love is spacious enough to allow the child to have their own experience, to learn their own lessons. This is the balance of wisdom and compassion. The equanimous heart is not closed, it is radically open. It is open enough to feel the pain of the world without being shattered by it, and open enough to feel the joy of the world without becoming attached to it and dependent on it. This is the ultimate freedom. When we are no longer blown about by the 8 worldly winds, we are finally free. Our well-being is no longer a fragile thing, dependent on getting what we want and avoiding what we don't. It springs from an inner wellspring of peace that can never run dry. The seed of faith, saddha, that we planted with a tentative trust, has now grown into the mighty, deep-rooted mountain of equanimity. The moment-to-moment practice of patience, khanti, is no longer an effort we must apply, but has blossomed into this constant, abiding state of serene balance. The impatient, anxious, and reactive mind has finally found its true home in the vast, quiet, and loving stillness of a liberated heart. You have learned to become the mountain, and now you can offer the world the shade of your own unshakable peace. We began our journey together in a silent room, with a mind that was not silent at all. We began with the familiar, aching pain of waiting, the feeling of a life held in suspense, our peace and happiness held hostage by an uncertain future. We felt the frantic, impatient thirst for a different moment, a different reality. From that place of quiet desperation, we have traveled an immense distance, not across oceans or continents, but through the vast and intricate landscapes of our own hearts and minds. We have walked a path that began with a courageous diagnosis, looking directly at the pervasive friction of dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness that comes from a mind at war with reality. We learned to see this reality not as solid and threatening, but as a great, flowing river of impermanence, of anicca. We searched for the solid, separate self that felt so wounded and anxious, only to find the liberating truth of anatta, that there is no fixed CEO to defend, no fragile statue to protect. This understanding allowed us to release our fearful grip on outcomes and to place our trust in the simple, elegant law of karma, realizing that our only true power lies in the quality of the seeds we plant in this present moment. With this map of wisdom in hand, we began the work of cultivation. We learned to light the lamp of mindfulness, illuminating the present moment and freeing us from the ghosts of the past and the mirages of the future. We learned to water the garden of the heart with the loving kindness of metta, soothing the harsh inner critic and taming the raging elephants of our own fear and anger, we discovered a new kind of strength, the warrior's patience of Kunti, and a new kind of energy, the balanced, joyful effort of Virya. These practices, working in harmony, allowed the muddy waters of the mind to settle, revealing the profound, unified stillness of Samadhi. And from that stillness, we were able to look upon the world with new eyes, to stand like a great mountain amidst the 8 worldly winds, abiding in the spacious, compassionate, and unshakable peace of Upekkha. If there is one essential truth to carry forth from this entire journey, let it be this: the peace you have been searching for was never at the destination. It was never waiting for you in the email, the promotion, the apology, or the arrival of some perfect future. That was an illusion. The peace you seek is a quality of presence. It is a state of being that is available to you right here in this very moment. The timing of the universe is not a distant, cosmic schedule you must patiently endure. The timing of the universe is the rhythm of your own breath. It is the pulse of life in your veins. It is the sacred, unfolding reality of now. To synchronize with the universe is simply to arrive, fully, in the life that is already yours. In this understanding, waiting is no longer a prison. It becomes a sanctuary, a quiet and spacious classroom for the cultivation of wisdom and peace. The pressures of the world will not simply vanish. The winds of gain and loss, praise and blame will continue to blow. But you are no longer a helpless leaf tossed about by their force. You have discovered the mountain within you. You now possess the tools. You have the anchor of the breath, the warmth of a kind heart, the light of clear seeing. The capacity for profound peace is not something you need to acquire. It is your own deepest nature, waiting patiently to be uncovered. The path is not about becoming someone else. It is about gently, patiently, and lovingly removing all that is not you, and returning home to the quiet, spacious, and liberated heart you have always been.